Everyone.
Please come to order. It's time for the meeting. Just begin. And Larry, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Georgiana.
Director Dan Whitler.
Here.
Director Larry Duncan.
Here.
Director Seth Carolla.
Here.
Vice President Cliff Jacobson.
Here.
President Bill Kellogg.
Here. I'm changing the agenda a little bit from the published one tonight, in that we'll go through the public participation and approval of minutes, and then after that I'll have some changes. So, do we have approval of the consent agenda? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I have a second.
Second.
Any questions or comments about the consent calendar?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Public participations. I got to read this thing. I can't ad-lib on this one. Individuals will be given an opportunity to address the board regarding matters not scheduled on the agenda. Although the board cannot take action on any matter not on the agenda, comments will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Opportunity for public comment on agenda items will be provided at the time they are discussed by the board, and comments limited to 5 minutes per agenda item. So, does anybody want to comment on anything that is not on the agenda?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Board. Ward Habriel, Division 1 resident. Two things, and I can keep it under 5 minutes. I recently have had an experience with some employees of the meter department, and I'd like to offer some praise on behalf of myself and the landlord who owns the property next to me, because the renters there have had an undefined issues, I'll say, with PID. The representatives that presented themselves at that property were professional, clear, and intent on their meaning of being there, and proficient. And I want to pass that on. It could have been a very uncomfortable situation for both of them. And this has happened on numerous occasions, and every single one of them that showed up from the meter department has been that way. I appreciate that. I wanted to pass that on. Secondly, I am extremely disappointed with some members of our community who have either mutilated, destroyed, or removed green and white signs from around this town. I think that's disgusting. I don't know who they are by name. I have recognized one of the trucks from a person who had done that, but I won't mention a name. But I find it totally disgusting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ward. I agree with that.
Anybody else would like to speak to an item that's not on the agenda? We'll go ahead with approval of checks, but as soon as then we'll do Treasurer's report and then committee assignments. Those are changed from what you have as printed. So Kevin, would you present the check?
Yep. So obviously the checks are presented to the board every month, and I'll answer any questions that the board might have on any of the specific items within the check register for the month of December.
We can start with Dan and then just come down the line. I'll be last.
To save time for the public, I came in this morning and had about a 40-minute visit with our treasurer and got all of my questions answered. Thank you very much. Caught me up on last month and this month.
Larry, I guess it's your turn.
Okay, I only had one on page 24. Measure C Pearson Road improvement, Town of Paradise.
That was
$22,000.
one of mine too, naturally.
That's for raising the water valves. So raising of the water valves and the expense associated with that is PID's responsibility. When they do a project like that, we always choose to have their contractor do it. It usually gets bid out through the process. We're always reluctant to go in and cut up a new road to raise the valves ourselves because we don't want to get in the middle of a problem in that area and it being blamed on us. We want the contractor to be responsible for everything with that brand new project. So that's what that was for.
What section?
Question, were we ever, did that come to the board for approval before because it's such a big amount?
That one didn't because it was estimated quite a bit lower, but then it was bid out higher, but it still fell within the parameters for that type of work under our purchasing policy. That's why I could have brought the bill to the board. It came after the fact, but it still was within my approval level.
Very good.
That was Pearson Road from Clark to Pence, so it was a pretty big project.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that whole new project, yeah.
Okay, that's the only question I had.
Okay, so I just wanted to point out, let me get back to the, it seems like this time of year, we got a lot of permit fees and membership dues that escalate our monthly checking up a bit. So, but those are one-time amounts during the year on some of them, on most of them on there. Yeah, I noticed there was a lot of those that seemed to bring that up a lot. So iPad page 18, the Department of Water Resources, 182,743. That was which loan?
That's the Davis Gronsky loan, and that's the one that's paid through the property taxes.
Yeah.
And that is our final payment
That's what I thought. Okay.
on that loan. So that loan will be paid off. So therefore, the tax roll, the people of Paradise will have that fall off their tax roll this next tax year.
We had a very large principal payment, not much on interest, so I assumed it was probably the final payment.
It was the final payment.
Okay. iPad page 20, Hunt and Sons. Director Jacobson's always asking about, are we going around shopping around? Have we been shopping for comparative gas pricing out there?
Yeah, we always go out to bid. I believe, is it an annual bid or is it, we've gone on 2 years on this one?
This is a 2-year.
Yeah.
Do it in 16. It's a 2-year.
I think we did a two-year contract on the gas delivery.
Okay. iPad page 21, Jones Hall. What's that?
Yeah, Jones Hall is our bond counsel, and so what they did was they were to get state revolving fund approval. The state requires you to have bond counsel letter,
Sure.
and so they did our bond counsel opinion, and it's a flat fee for those type of services that they charge. So no matter how often we use them, they just charge us a $2,500
I just knew it wasn't something we ever normally see on there. It was a new name
Right.
that I had.
B reservoir.
Yeah, the B reservoir.
Loan.
Okay. Something I hadn't seen. And we did iPad page 24. So iPad page 25, the U.S. Bank, I just thought maybe we should get maybe a more descriptive.
Yeah, it should say trustee fees. So
The bank
with
charges, and I was like, well, bank charges.
Yeah. So with our 2009 bonds, we had to have a trustee with the final payment put into trust, and this is our annual trustee fees that they charge for for holding that funds, but also reporting to the right agencies the correct thing, and then they pay out the bond issuers all the money that they're owed.
It was just, it wasn't too descriptive with
It should say
charges on there, so I was wondering what it
normally
was.
it says trustee fees. Last year it said trustee fees.
Okay, thank you. That was all I had.
Well, they got all in my head picked except for one, which is my favorite, Zinner. $50,000 we spent last month on, I'm assuming, replacement units for the Fireflies.
Correct.
So I don't have a question so much on that as just a comment. I think we're probably going to get an update or continuation on that battery replacement program. So I'd kind of like to know where we're at on that, because it seems to me like the failure rate's accelerating on these units, and so I'm just curious where we're at on that.
That's an agenda item, so we'll cover that when that comes up.
That's the only one I have.
Let's see what I got left after you guys. got most of what I was looking for. Can we have a motion of,
I move approval of general check fund numbers 50116 through 50216 for the month of December 2016, totaling $489,838.05, exclusive of voided check numbers 50180, 50187, and authorization of similar amount allowing or adjusting for extraordinary budget or board-approved items during the month of January 2017.
I'll second that.
any more questions about the whole thing? Anything at all? Comments? Public? Any comments from the public about this? About any of the issues that were brought up or anything?
On Cedar Creek Publishing, that's kind of a large amount for 1 month. It doesn't break down the water conservation.
That's
Did
for
everybody hear Bob, or should he be up at the mic?
Bob Dickinson, and the question is Cedar Creek Publishing. There's 15,459.
I think it was just said that's 6 months.
That's 6 months.
Worth of billing.
6 months of work.
And what's the inclusion on the billing of that? Is that for hours of service, or is that for, how does that work?
Mark and Tanya are here, and they can answer your question.
George.
Or George.
George can answer it.
So Cedar Creek Publishing helps us with, they did Party in the Park, which is probably the tail end of that, a little bit of billing. They help with the newsletter. They've helped with the our annual water quality reporting, our Facebook page, and our web site, as far as not doing it all, but giving us guidance and our staff guidance and suggestions. They attend meetings so that they can understand the district issues, to be able to present them in our news articles and other general support. And keep in mind, as per our contract with them, it's $100 an hour. If they both attend, it's the same price whether we get one or both, so they're not double billing us when they make this a great evening out. Or $85 an hour, sorry.
Didn't they also reduce their contract during the?
That's why, yeah.
It started at 95 and we reduced it to 85 on the west of the
Okay.
Do I hear 45?
This reflects $3,906.75 for printing, which is not our pocket, and $312.54 was for sales tax.
The other thing on the way the budget reads here is I see everything is just pretty much lumped in here. You can't decipher normal operating expenses versus any property investment money being spent in here, the two of them, to follow it down. And I think that needs to be addressed. You've obviously got room in here to do a better breakdown for questions like this on how the money is being sent, other than...
Bob, I think the next report is coming. He's going to answer some of those questions.
Right.
Maybe not all of them, but most of them. And that's what's going to come next. It's normally in the back of the thing, but I moved it up to be right with the approval of checks. And that's the treasurer's report, and you'll find it in the back of your agenda.
Let's finish this first. We still have a motion on the table.
Finish up? Any more questions from the board?
Just comment for Mr. Dickinson. In my meeting with the treasurer, I have requested a breakdown on several of these items. If you could contact me, I'd be happy to share them with you when I get them. Thank you.
Okay, is there anything more, Kevin?
That's it for me.
Okay, then let's go on. Do we need a vote to
Yeah.
approve the treasurer's report?
No, you have a vote to approve the checks and then approve for the prior
Okay,
month,
so we'll do
or
the
for the next
checks and
month.
then the treasurer's report. Yes. Can I have a motion from the
It's
board?
already
got
did.
it.
Got a motion in a second.
In a second.
2 seconds. Oh, that's right. Everybody wanted a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This is what happens when you have a good board. They tell me what to do, keep me out of trouble. Okay. To find the treasurer's report, you have to go to the back At least I hope that's where I'm going. What page is it on, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay, there we go.
155.
This report is very critical to how we run the district because it's an overall financial look of our dealings in the district. And I would like to have it in the next agenda be in the same area. So what number is it? 155. I'm trying to find it myself.
155.
It's on the screen.
Yeah, I know, but I got notes on the pages,
okay.
so I need to find the pages. A bit old-fashioned, and I use both printed and the computer, and I'm too tight to print it out off the computer. Okay, I went right by it. Okay, away we go.
Okay, so you have my written report. Our cash balance is at just a tick over $2 million. We're almost at an unrestricted cash balance of $1 million. You can see the reserve fund there, the 2009 COP reserve fund. That's the one that's held with U.S. Bank, and then we also hold money for the Paradise Fire Department fund, which we collect on our bills, and that's growing up to over $500,000. So that million, a little bit over $1 million. So, is restricted. That means that the board has no opportunity to do anything other than spend it for the specific purpose that it's held for. So our debt service, we're almost 100% of our debt service is almost paid through the whole fiscal year. So through this 6-month process, we've almost paid 100% of our debt service, which is a good thing because that's one of our largest expenses that we have. From a operational standpoint, our operational expenses are right on line from what we're budgeted. They're actually a little bit below what we've budgeted. It's our consumption revenue is below what we budgeted, and this was again we didn't know where we were going to come in based on the new rates, how they were going to be collected, where people would return back to consumption based on the prior year major cutback, how people would kind of react to that. So we're seeing a little bit of a dip in our consumption revenue, but we also have a pad in there to absorb that. So we had about $700,000 budgeted to reserve this year. So therefore, our reserving is going to be less, but our operations are still going to be right in line. We're still going to be okay operational, and so just our reserve's going to be kind of building a little bit slower than we had anticipated. From the highlights, I think Aquahawk's is still a great highlight to continue to use. The customers continue to like it, and it continues to be one of our highlights of customer service. Reserving policy is done and our audit is complete. The retirement plan, which will be another agenda item, but I wanted to I was originally going to put it behind my treasurer's report, then I just made it a complete agenda item. But most of the accounts, I believe, have been, the overcharge has been returned to most of the accounts. And we are now in the process of getting in contact with the auditor to go through an audit of all of the accounts to make sure that all of the calculations and the philosophies behind the calculations were done correctly. You can see attached. I put attached that the RFP was attached to the treasurer's report, but it's in a complete separate agenda item, so you don't need to look for that. S&P. We are a rated company by Standards & Poor's, and we got a rating back when we did the 2009 COPs because it was a public issue of a bond. So we put this bond out for public. The public wants to know, what am I buying? Is this what's my rating on these bonds that I'm going to buy? So S&P did a rating for us at that time, and at the time, our rating was A+. They do a periodic reviews of your industry through that time period. So we've had one review, which was done about 3 years ago, and they held our rating at A+. And then we did another review 2 months ago. We went through the whole process, and then we got their results back a couple weeks ago. So we, as a company, were downgraded from an A+ to an A, what they call an A stable. So it means that you're not an A+, but you're an A, but you're strong A, maybe a strong A is kind of how they see it. They took into consideration the biggest factor in the reports behind my treasurer's report, but the biggest factor was the depletion of cash, of operational cash, of reserving cash. So they saw that depletion go down fairly quickly, and we all knew that. We all saw that. This is not a surprise. But they also have seen that the district has reacted to that too, and that they put in rate increases to try to rebuild that cash, and the projections look like that cash will be rebuilt with those rate increases that are implemented for the next 3 years. So that's why it's A stable. So what we've done has already been taken in consideration on that rating. So it's not like in 3 years they're going to come back and go, oh my gosh, you guys have done so great, we're going to increase your rate. That's already kind of taken into consideration. If you come back 3 years later and go, you guys didn't do anything that you said you were going to do, then you're going to even be downgraded even further. So that was our talk with that.
For the public's reference, that rating is very crucial when we go out to get loans, bonds, or any other thing that we are doing financially.
Yes, that rating takes into consideration what the market will pay for your bonds and what interest rate they would require back for them to take the risk associated with the underlying risk of those bonds. The underlying risk is what holds it is us. We're the underlying risk.
Our ability to pay back.
Right. So you're going to pay, you want more return on your investment if you're going to go out and buy PID bonds versus if you're going to go out and buy federal treasury bonds based on the underlying asset of those bonds, the federal treasury versus PID. So that's where the rating really does come into effect, is the interest rate that you will pay to issue bonds for any type of construction. So with that, I can answer any questions at this time.
You're going to do training. I will be attending the annual GFOA conference.
Yep. So
what's GFOA?
It's the Government Finance Officers Association. It's the largest government finance association in the United States and maybe the world, but it does incorporate the United States and Canada. They have an annual conference every year, and it moves from city to city every year. And I feel it's one of the best training centers for my profession out there. It's a 5-day conference that has 5 tracks per session is what they call it. So you can choose different classes for each one of your little blocks of sessions that they have out there based on different highlights. And it just it seems to be very, very valuable to myself, and I believe to the district when I attend that conference. So.
Any estimate on cost?
Normally it runs between $1,800, right around $1,800.
That's with transportation and everything?
That's everything. Transportation, cost of the conference, meals, all that good stuff.
This is the one you go to every year, correct?
Yeah.
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 Do you want to go over the pages that come afterwards that show our debts and everything?
Yeah, I can run over. The page 156 is the financial summary, and it kind of runs through where we were at this time last year and where we are now, and then it gives a little comparison to where we budgeted, and then some percentages based on that. Obviously, our largest revenue is from water sales. You can see we're up 26% based on prior year at this time. The outside water sales is right on track. Our interest is down, and it's because last year we had some CDs kind of mature early on in the year, and so we're just not seeing they were CDs that were purchased a while ago and they matured out, so we had a lot of interest that kind of was gathered. So we're just not seeing the interest rates coming up. We are transferring quite a bit of money over to LAIF at this point because the local agency investment fund that the state runs, because you're starting to see some increase in their rates. So their percentage rates going up. So we should hopefully start seeing a little bit more interest on our money. Yeah, and it's completely 100% liquid. That's right. So, and a good interest rate right now is 0.6. You know, it's not really anything to write home about, but it's better than 0.25. So, our taxes, we actually, you can see that we budgeted $240,000. All that normally comes in between January and March. A lot of that comes in. So, we actually just got a huge check from the county in January, so that'll increase in the next month. Gain loss, that's just very steady. Let's see. And that's really it on the revenue side. From the operating side, you can see that we're right on budget. I mean, from last year to this year, we're less than 1% off. We're 48% less, or 48% of budget, which means we're 2% or 1.5% below what we budgeted. So from an operational standpoint, we're good. And I include, a lot of times I break out pipeline, but pipeline and operations are really hand in hand. You're just breaking it out because it's a capital project that we do ourselves. And so if you combine the two, you can see that we're actually really a lot further down than where we were last year and further down than what we budgeted. So debt service, you can see that we're right on where we were last year, and we've already paid almost 80% of our annual debt service.
I'm curious about something. So your 2015-2016 water sales were lower than your 2016-2017 significantly.
Correct.
And your expenditures look to be about the same, but our cash dropped by a considerable amount, which caused that A plus to go to A. What am I missing in there that caused that?
You're missing that between 2013 and 2016, we had a tremendous decrease in our cash reserves. And so that's where that S&P rating was taken into consideration.
We paid off a lot of loans.
Well, it was, the biggest thing was we had a big expenditure on the design of the processed water recycle project that we paid for out of our own cash. So that was one of the larger ones. So if you see, you look down here.
Oh, I see you had a pipeline expenditure that was...
Down here is our capital improvements. So we had spent $400,000 in capital improvement that last year by this time, and we've spent $275 this year. And that $275, a lot of that was spent at the beginning of the fiscal year. We haven't spent much on capital projects from October to now.
So the drop in cash flow was to pay for the previous year expense?
It's from previous,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And again, what I'll do is I can kind of see we can see the detail of some of these other things on the next page. So here's our revenue summary, and this is where you can kind of see where the water sales really increased is on the second line. It's the water consumption. So last year we were about 800,000 in water consumption. This year we're at 1.7 million in water consumption revenue. So that's where we got the big increase in our revenue. Service charge is right about the same. It's a little bit less because we did make some adjustments to some people actually did get a decrease in their service charge with the last rate adjustment, and so you did see a little bit of a decrease in the service charge revenue. Here's our consumption revenue charted based on what we budgeted versus what actually came in. And you can see that this, whatever color that is, orange, is actual. The yellow is what we had budgeted, so I kind of just included in there. You can see some of our low months are coming in right about where we budgeted. It's just some of these higher months didn't come in as much as we had budgeted. So we'll just have to adjust that next budget year to maybe monitor and maybe create something that's similar to what we're seeing in this current year to take into consideration. So that's where that $300,000 loss or less than budget number comes from. Here's our operational expenses, where we're pretty much right on budget, kind of pretty much right where we want to be. And it's just broken out by departments and where people are working and how expenses are kind of spent, but it's all pretty standard and looks almost identical to the prior year. Here's our debt service. And so here's, again, this is something that's kind of changed, is that you remember we refinanced this private placement loan, so we were paying $267 a year. Now we're going to be paying $243, so that's a savings to the district. There's that Davis Grunski loan that was paid off this last year, or this last month. That will no longer be part of the district's debt, but it'll be no longer part of the customers of PID's debt. So, just a budget to kind of show when these debt service payments come up. You can see that we made this payment here, but we have two big ones kind of left at the end of April and March. That'll be it. But the biggest one is this one right here, $430,000, and that happens in September. Here's our major capital projects. You can see the process water recycle project is the only capital project that we spent any money on this year, and that was done fairly early on in the fiscal year, around July and August. We haven't made any payments on any capital projects since then, so we're kind of in a holding pattern at this point. Kind of open contracts with AECom, De Novo, which is our water rights engineer. We have a open contract with Butte County RCD, and then Wagner and Boncier, which are water rights engineers, and just kind of what we've paid them going forward. So. And then there's our S&P rating and all the detail behind that, which I kind of went through and explained verbally. So if there's any questions, I can answer them now.
I just want to know, is this what Mr. Dickinson was looking for? Is that what you were, the explanation of your operating? You wanted it kind of more associated with the check register.
Traditionally, money should be monitored in a property investment and or operating expenses separately. And there's no way I really truly identifying this without asking questions.
I just want to know if you were looking for it in the check register or more in the treasurer's report.
Didn't we used to have it by account number? We dropped that or something?
Yeah, I can include that back on there. So
we used to have it where the checks were by account number. There were pages showing what accounts the money went to. But I guess he had dropped it. It's usually in the treasurer's.
We get a more condensed
in
version.
The check report, yeah.
Yes, Dan?
Somebody a few months ago, you might recall that we had talked about the capacity fees, and somebody from the public had asked me, and I spoke with you today about it. The reason that there is a zero balance in that is because of the fact that even though we have seen some projects out there being developed, those fees were paid into the capacity fee budget before this fiscal year. And I know that that's true because when you're going to start a commercial project like the one on Clark Road there by Taco Bell and so on, those you pay for a long time in advance. So anyway, that's the answer I got is those. The reason there isn't anything, even though you see current projects in town, is because they paid those fees before the middle of last summer, and so they aren't in here. So, and then those funds were depleted, so largely. And is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Most of the money went to the new water recycling thing.
Correct.
Any other comments by the board? Your turn, public, if you want to ask questions or have comments on the report that Kevin just gave.
I move we accept the treasurer's report for the period ending December 31st, 2016.
Second.
You can have it, Seth.
Thank you.
Any more discussion about the treasurer's report? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. It's my turn to talk about committee assignments.
You're not going to do the special meeting, get it out of the way?
Yeah, I want, because as we go on, the members of the committee will know what, if something comes up where one committee or another should look after it, they'll know who's responsible.
President Kellogg?
Yes.
Wasn't sure when you wanted to hold the annual public facilities financing committee.
Yeah, they were just talking
What?
about it, yeah.
That's all right.
Well, we have right after the approval of checks, if the board wanted to recess as an annual, as a public
No,
facilities.
we're going to do the committees, and then we can recess.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I didn't.
Yeah, no, I haven't forgotten about the recess. I've just been focused on the committees. So I've been working on those things right up till the meeting. There's, Dan doesn't even know about this one. I want to have an ad hoc committee that'll last 30 days with Dan and me to go over rules, revisions, and so forth that we use in conducting the meetings.
Oh, I got it.
And if Dan doesn't object, then I'll have that as an ad hoc committee.
Do I have a choice?
Yeah,
no,
certainly you have a choice.
I am delighted to, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Here's comes the assignments. Administration and Personnel Committees. Chairman will be Dan, and Cliff will be the other member of the committee. On the Finance Committee, Cliff will be the chairman, and Dan will be the other committee member. The Lake and Recreation remains as it is now. On the Community Relations, Larry will be replacing Ken Hunt, and he'll be chairman.
And who's the other one on it?
Who's the other one?
Who's the other one besides me?
It's already Sep, it's already on the
Step,
committee.
okay, yeah, but we don't remember.
Oh, well, it's,
You got
I'm
it set?
sorry, President Kellogg, can you repeat that one more time? I didn't catch that.
which one?
The committee that you were just.
Community Relations.
Is that what
Community
you said?
Relation is Larry's chairman, and Sep is on it already. He stays.
Okay, thank you.
Town Liaison is Larry is a chairperson there too, and Sep replaces Ken Hunt. Botanical Garden remains the same with myself and Cliff. Water Conservation Committee remains the same with myself and Larry. Water Supply, Larry Duncan takes Ken Hunt's place, and he's chairman, and Sep's the other director. Now, I'm not sure about these. ACWA Director Representative, do I assign them, or do we have a separate vote by the board?
I think you assign it, and then if you could, if you're pleased to, could you appoint me as the alternative?
An alternate too?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize. Okay. Well, put Sep as the one on, and the alternate would be Larry.
What could you put me as the alternate? Because I'm.
Oh, you want to be the alternate?
Yeah, because I go to these committee meetings because I'm on the finance committee, and so I could, if I'm appointed the alternate, I could vote for the district.
Which one was this?
In the Aqua JPIA,
JPIA.
the Aqua
JPIA.
JPIA
Okay.
representative from the
For us,
district.
for us.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then, so Kevin's the alternate. Sorry, Larry. Could you?
That's okay, I didn't want to be on it anyway.
Okay. Well, when we get done here, if anybody doesn't want to be where I put you, we can talk about it. Butte County Special Districts replacing Ken Hunt. I put Larry. Do you want to be on that?
I'm already on it because I'm on LAFCO.
Oh, okay. So we need
So
somebody
you
else.
want somebody else.
Okay. Do we have any volunteers?
Butte County Special Districts goes through their own voting and approval
yeah,
process. So once Ken got dropped off, they'll go through a recruitment process. So we don't get to pick who
Oh, okay.
replaces
Well,
them.
then not to worry
They'll
about.
have a nomination process.
Right.
Don't we usually
vote
see
on
that? We vote on it?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Okay. Butte Local, LAFCO. Larry's on it already, so there's no change there.
That's done the same way.
Okay. And does anybody want to change from any of these assignments I gave out?
If we can just read them back so we know where.
Well, she'll put them on, the, Georgiana will put them on the website.
No, just so we can.
Oh,
I'll update the list and I can.
Well, I have one rough
Thank
draft here I can give Georgiana, and anybody, you can pass it, I'll pass it down, you guys can look at it.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great, yeah.
Okay, nobody's complaining, so we'll just go ahead.
We also have public members of committees.
Yeah, we have public members that people have applied for.
Yes.
Isn't it listed somewhere else in the agenda, though?
It's right here. So,
It's in the same area
They're
you
letters.
jumped to.
so is there just two with public?
Yeah,
there's
I've
several.
marked it here, I'm sorry. I
So the
have it
Paradise
here.
Lake Rec Committee,
We have letters that have been submitted, and
Roland.
we need the board to approve the letters. One of them came in today, and Georgiana sent out an email, and I printed it out, for
Is that,
Dave Berman wants to be on which committee?
he couldn't make
He
it.
submitted his letter in time, he just had another commitment.
No, I understand, but it's a lake committee. So,
how many members for the lake?
So,
well, yes, Georgiana?
I should have highlighted this, I didn't think about it, but on the lake committee, we had 3 public members, but Mr. Boise did not reapply, and Dave Campbell did not reapply because he may be moving out of the area. So, we had Roland Resendez reapply, and then we have 2 new letters of interest, one from Dave Berman and Sharon Porter.
So that gives us our 3,
Right, correct.
because there's 3 members, 3 public members.
Dave Berman?
Dave Berman and Sharon Porter were the,
Okay. Can I have a motion of approving these public committee members for the lake committee?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Any comments from the public? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Let's see, I'll look at my notes now to see if I didn't do anything else. Okay.
Water conservation?
I'll hold back on the
No, we got the water conservation.
We got water
committee
conservation.
to cover.
Water
That was
conservation.
lake, that was a motion
Public-
and second for lake committee.
Yeah.
well, the water conservation isn't changed any. It's the same.
Looks like we have a
Same.
new,
We have to appoint-
looks
Yeah,
like
but
we
the-
have one new
we have
The board
member.
has to
Oh,
reappoint
your
them.
public members.
Ward and
Right.
Chuck.
How many public members do we have
Ward and Chuck submitted their
Georgiana?
letters, didn't they?
for the water conservation?
we have Ward Haverhill, Michael Spees,
Spees.
and Chuck Bell, and they all 3 reapplied for reappointment.
And we only have 3 on there?
Four,
Yes.
Okay.
Just
4 is
seems
what
like
we
there's
had
more
now.
corollaries
Well,
than
Jerry
we have in
Minden
meetings.
was, the board had made last year the honorary member.
Yeah, and we sort of want to keep him on there.
Who?
Menden.
Does he attend?
No, he doesn't, but he's gonna, I have a feeling he's gonna
You were on
donate
there, yes.
some things,
Oh, good.
You said that one didn't change.
some plants. We're
For
keeping
the
him
garden
as
up
a
there?
member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to,
Okay, I move we appoint the 3 here and Jerry Menden.
we have a second?
Second.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. There's some other changes, but they will come in the agenda after we come back from the closed session. We're going to go into now.
It's not closed session.
Standing committees we
Yeah.
just did. That's what we just did, Warren. What?
Finance, he said finance.
Committee. That's finance. Yes, I did. Nobody said a word. Well, go ahead and speak now or forever hold your peace.
Well,
Warren.
because standing committees is the 4th one after the appointment of people to the others, and I do have a comment here, and that's based on my experience last year when I had heard that there was going to be a budget committee meeting for the annual review. I asked if the public was able to attend that and was told yes. I did attend that, and in fact, I was given a copy of the proposed budget, approximately 77 pages beforehand, which I reviewed. In the review of the first 5 pages, I found 4 typos, and by the time I got to page 35, I found a $17,000 error. I believe it's critically important to have members of the public attend the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Warren.
Sure.
We're going to try and correct that for, we do have, just like we voted for the lake and and the water conservation, we'll try to have public members of the other committees, but that's going to have to be a separate vote in the board to do that.
Oh, he's already on down the line. I'll get it later.
Okay, it calls now for a recess of the Board of Directors and convene as the Paradise Irrigation District Public Facility Financing Corporation Board. And before we do that, we can have a 5-minute break. And that's mostly for the old men like me that have to use the bathroom frequently.
Oh, are we actually recessing?
Yeah, it's been over 5 minutes, so we need to come back to order. Please come back to order. Yeah, I know, but I don't like using it.
Well, see, 400
Gavel.
Okay, go ahead.
budget and so on. Of course, I won't vote.
That was him. That worked.
Yeah.
But I can
Now that we've done the commentary about how the mallet was used, let's get back to order. So we're going to talk about now the
Careful now.
recess for as the Paradise Irrigation District Board of Directors and convene as the Paradise Irrigation District Public Facilities Financing Corporation Board. And Kevin, can you
call to order.
call to order? Oh, here we go. Call to order. We got to do all these things over
Right.
again.
It's a different
It's a
meeting.
meeting and a meeting.
Okay, roll call.
Director Dan Whitland,
Here.
Director Larry Duncan,
Here.
Director Seth Carolla,
Here.
Vice President Cliff Jacobson,
Here.
President Joe Kellogg.
Here. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes of December 8th, 2015 annual meeting? And they're in the packet somewhere.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Any more discussion about the minutes?
We weren't here. So.
Well,
As long as you read them, you don't have to abstain.
Oh, okay.
you have to vote on it at any rate, whether you're here or not. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Public participation. I got to read this thing again. Members of the audience will be given an opportunity to present items not scheduled on the agenda. No action can be taken on these items, but they may be placed on future agendas for consideration. Comments should be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes duration. Opportunity for public comment on agenda items will be provided at the time they are discussed by the board, with comments limited to 5 minutes per item. Financing update, I'm sorry. Anybody want to say anything that isn't on the agenda? We'll go through that again. Ward, you run out of things to talk about? Okay. No, but you'll wait for later. Okay. Oh, well, good. You can tell me when 5 minutes is in. Next time you speak. Financing update, Treasurer Phillips, information item only.
So I'll kind of give a background on what this is. It's the Public Facilities Financing Corporation. It is a actual corporation that is registered with the state of California. It's a not-for-profit corporation that, and by law, corporations must, to keep their corporate status and to keep the non-for-profit status, must have minutes, approved minutes. So that's truly what we're here doing. This is specifically for the issuance of certificates of participation. So the 2009 certificate of participation issuance, the bond issuance that the district did for the meter replacement, is the last time this corporation was even used. And all it is it's an in and an out. So basically what it does is technically the corporation issues the debt, and then the district then leases the debt back from the corporation. So it's legally how it's structured. And so that's the last time this was used, and that's what it's sitting there for. So really there's been no activity since 2009 within this corporation. I wanted to give you an update on what the last time I used it was the 2009 COPs. That again was for the meter replacement project. We borrowed approximately $5.7 million. $5 million went to the actual project itself. A little over $500,000 went into trust for the last debt service payment associated with that, and the remaining went to the cost of issuance, the bond counsel, and then the placement agent. So I brought up this page because you can kind of see where our debt service is, where we started. We structured it so that we paid less in the first 5 years and more in the next 10 years based on our cash flow issues at the time. The interest rate on those COPs is 4.25%. It's a 15-year term. The loan payoff is in 2024. And it doesn't open up for refinance for another 3 years. So when we get to that point, when we're able to refinance these, we will look and see if there's rates out there that we might be able to beat and save some money for the district. But at this point, there is no opportunity to refinance these loans.
If you did, would there be a penalty?
Yes. So you basically there's not even a penalty. You can't even pay it off.
Oh, you can't. So
you would have to set money into trust. That money then would just be paid off like you would normally pay it off. And then you would have to take this money over here, and then it would be a mess. So really, there's not even a penalty. You're not even allowed to prepay them until that specific time. And the reason why that bond issuers put that in there is because it lowers the interest rate on your total bond issuance because people are guaranteed payment of this interest rate for a specific amount of time before it has the opportunity to be called. So if you're going to call it earlier than that, then people want more interest because then they're going, well, now I'm not getting that increased rate over that long period of time. So it does help with reduced interest rate on those bonds. So
you're saying bonds that are callable pay higher interest rates?
Correct. Yes, absolutely. And a lot of times you'll see a higher interest rate on callable bonds out there. So.
And they're the ones that get called all the time.
That's right, because people are issuing those with the anticipation that they will be able to call them at the call date. So if you have any questions about that, I can answer them. And if not, we can close this down.
Who's the president, vice president, and secretary of the corporation?
So the corporation mirrors the board. So it used to be that we had outside people other than board members that were part of it. And then we talked to our bond counsel about that, and they didn't think that there was any necessary need for it. And it created a little bit of a problem because we don't use it that often. And before we weren't even having these annual meetings on it.
You're the vice president of the corporation.
That's why I was asking.
Good on your resume.
Because that means then that we have to sign those documents so that you can send them back in a time.
I sign them. So as a treasurer, I sign the documents and I file all the returns for the corporation.
So you sign for Bill and I?
There's no need for you guys to specifically sign. And really, all it is a postcard.
Typically, because in our corporation, our attorney creates our documents, but they have to be signed,
right,
showing that we had the meeting and that, officers were.
Kevin is an officer, as the treasurer.
Yeah. So and our tax return for our corporation is different than yours. We find it. All we file is a postcard. And it's basically stating that our revenue, our receipts were less than $50,000, which they were because we have zero. And therefore, all we have to do is file a postcard and send in $20. So, and it's all electronic anymore. So we just go online, fill it out. There's not even an ink signature on it anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does any other directors have comments or questions? Does anyone in the public have comments or questions?
I do. I have a comment.
Lorraine Eagleson. This was one of the items that had been brought to our attention when we were involved in our protest and our recall, was the issue of the automated meters. It was one of the things that was on the budget of overspending. And as I'm looking at this, I'm just making this as a statement. We still owe $4 million plus or minus, depending upon the timeline that we're probably looking at here. We're 6 years into the debt, and we have a product that we bought that is failing. So this is just one of the expenditures that is very frustrating for the customers to see that we're still paying on a loan and replacing what the loan purchased. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Is there any more comments from the public?
Mr.
Yes,
Mr. President.
May I make a comment about it?
Yes.
The automated meters, the money we're spending now, they're not failing. What it is there's maintenance on them, just like anything else with a battery. We would have run out of water last year if we didn't have automated meters. And I don't think you want to do that. This is the thing that saved us from the drought. And it costs a lot of money, but unfortunately, it would have cost a lot more if we had run out of water. 10 times as much.
Yes, Kevin?
Oh,
I thought you were raising your hand.
Nope.
I can tell you haven't been to livestock auctions.
I would like to add one thing. Actually, some of them are failing, and unfortunately, the company is no longer around. That's the issue, the big issue. That's the elephant in the room. I don't think we could have foretold that they were going to fold, but from my research on it, that the meters are doing what they were designed to do until they fail. And if they hadn't failed, it would have been a good thing. And the ones that haven't failed are a good thing. And so now that we're down the road on this, the only way to keep it going is to fix the batteries on the ones that we can, and I think we're going to hear more about that later, and replace the ones that we can't, and learn the lesson to be a little bit more astute on who we buy from. But I think the concept is sound, and Larry's right. I mean, it does save labor in reading meters manually, and it does show up leaks quicker so that they can be fixed. And so I think long term it's probably a good thing. Most other water districts have gone to similar systems, and some of them have unfortunately purchased the ones that we purchased, but I think we're all learning from that. Going forward, we're going to be a little smarter, but I don't think we're going to abandon the idea of the automatic meters because they do what they were designed to do.
We never could have hit our conservation numbers that we did. You would not have the availability of AquaHawk to be able to watch your own water consumption or know when there was a leak or have it alert you on your phone when there's a leak without the automated meters, because that's what AquaHawk ties into in order to give you that information. Before, it had just been a meter. You might have a leak the day after he read the meter. It'd be 2 months before he came back and read your meter. You could have had a leak that whole 2 months. You'd still be responsible for that water. So now you get it within 48 hours, you get a notice whether or not you're leaking water. So for the public, it works out good, and it gave us the ability to conserve the amount of water that we needed to conserve. Otherwise, we'd have been in non-compliance with the state's restrictions.
Is there any more comments from either side, I guess? We're not seeming to stay with it. Not seeing any. It doesn't say no action. It was an information item only. And so we're going to adjourn as a Public Facility Financing Corporation and convene as the Paradise Irrigation District Board of Directors. So we'll go back to our agenda. Oh, I have to find my agenda.
5.
5A.
5A? Mm-hmm. I've got 2 copies of it here. Okay. We're into old business automated meter battery update. That's on page 3. I'm finding it.
29.
So,
29.
Treasurer Phillips.
Page 29.
29?
So,
Yeah.
again, it's old business, and it's going to be continued to be old business until I think we get a firm grasp on what the true Band-Aid or if it's full replacement or how we're going to go about this this process, and we continue to learn as we go. So, but I know that Director Kellogg asked for a update on the cost that has been incurred so far, and then what an estimated cost going forward might be. So that's what I put together here. So right now, we started replacing the Fireflies with stealth readers in August of 2013. We've replaced approximately 3,043. I would say it's continuing to go up every single day as we go through and replace it. So that's a shot in when we looked at it at that time. It's probably 100 more now that we've replaced since even then with stealth readers. The total cost to date is $260,000 that we've spent on these. And the total installation of Datamatic Fireflies was approximately 11,000. So there was Fireflies put on meters, and then there was the repeaters that were put on the signs to create the superhighway. So we approximately have 10,500 meters, and we approximately put in 500. There's probably approximately 500 repeaters up there. There might be 600, but that's we're kind of round numbers here. So the district will have about 7,800 more Fireflies out there to replace. That could be less than 7,800 based on the 7,800, based on that the Zener stealth readers have an ability to read further to each other. So there might not need for that repeaters to all be replaced. Again, that's where we're kind of looking at this and getting into that. So if the district was to replace all 7,800 at $85, which is today's price, the total cost would be $663,000. So, and then I put the options down there so you can kind of see I put the option 1, option 2, option 3. So that was option 1. That would include also a 20-year warranty on those stealth readers. I attached the warranty to the back so that you can kind of see what that warranty truly is. The district also has the option to purchase the stealth readers for $65 a piece with the carryover warranty from Datamatic. So the Datamatic original warranty was for 10 years. So therefore we would have three more years left on that, or 2 more years left on that warranty before it expires. So basically you're paying $20 for the 20-year warranty, truly, for an 18-year warranty on those. With that option, in replacing all of them, would be about $507,000. So you save about $150,000 without the warranty. And then the district estimates right now that an additional 31 will need to be replaced in the next 2 years. And that's based on the manufacturing location of the remaining Fireflies. So Jim probably can talk more about this, but there's certain Fireflies that were manufactured overseas that seem to be the ones that are failing more often. And based on our research that we've done and kind of spot checking, we believe that we have about 3,100 of those still in ground that will need to be, those will be expediently replaced. The others hopefully maybe will last longer periods of time over those than those other ones. All of them are going to be replaced eventually.
Were the other ones made? Oh, well, the battery would need to be replaced. Or are we thinking that the...
See, that's I will let Jim talk more about.
Jim can talk more because it's a chicken and the egg.
Yeah.
Whether the battery's the problem or...
The circuit board.
Or the circuit board.
Correct.
But Jim, you want to jump in?
Certainly.
Let me get to one. Come up, but I'm just going to get to the last thing.
I got you.
And then option 3 was if we were to replace the batteries in the original Fireflies, we're estimating that at about $45 for battery replacement. That includes the battery and labor, and that's about $351,000 for that. So that's the 3 options.
Wait a minute. Do you have the cost of replacing these other units, or is this just the cost of buying them? Because you're going to have more labor in changing those meters out than you're changing batteries.
So the 45 it includes additional labor on top of what it costs to replace them with new units.
Well, no, option one.
Option one, I think, yeah.
$63,000 to buy them.
That's material
What's the
cost.
labor cost to install them, take the old one out and install the new one that you just bought?
I'll let Jim
Wouldn't it be
kind
the
of.
same or more than changing the batteries?
The labor to just
Jim,
swap.
up to the mic for everybody can hear you. I know you speak loudly and determinedly, but.
The labor to just swap a MIU, meter interface unit, out is about a half an hour.
Okay.
On average.
Okay.
Right? Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. Then you got to add a little time in for the battery because you're essentially doing the same process, but now you're taking the case apart, cutting the existing battery out, taking that battery out, putting a new battery out, closing it up, and then you're activating it again.
Testing it.
So there's that little bit of time added for the battery change out.
Right, but if you're only including the cost for option 1 and 2 of buying the new Zinners, and on the battery replacement, you're including the cost of the batteries and the labor. Wouldn't it be fair to increase the 663 and the 507 and include the labor on both of those?
So our philosophy on that was that we only included the additional labor time over what the Zinner. So let's say, and this is what me and Jim worked with, that if you go out and it takes a half hour to place a Zinner, then we estimated that it would take an additional 10 more minutes to do the battery. So a half hour plus 10 more minutes. I only added the additional labor associated with battery replacement over what it costs to do the Zinner.
So to my first question, the 663 is the cost of the replacement Zinner and the time for labor.
I didn't include the time for labor, but the battery replacement only includes the additional time of, so let's say it's 40, if it's 45 minutes to do a battery, then it only includes 15 minutes of labor on that cost.
Exactly my point, but if you're giving us the cost to replace the Zinners, that's not a true cost because you don't have the labor in there for it.
So, yeah, we need on the 663 and the 507,
You
the
need
half
the
hour.
labor on top of it. If you're going to put it in on the battery replacement to give us a true value of the difference, I got to know what's the 663 plus the labor.
So the total cost then would increase proportionately on every single one of the cost. So
So you say it's $45 to replace a Zinner.
45 minutes.
And the batteries. You said 40.
Yeah.
You said $45.
Half an hour.
45 minutes.
Well, what? Okay.
Okay. So let me just
$351,000 to replace.
Let me just show you what I mean on proportionate cost increase. If I include the cost of replacing the Zinner units as let's say on a total cost, it's $100,000 in labor. Then the option 1 would go to.
Bring us a report next month with the cost broken down as Cliff likes them, and then we will save time here debating it, because that's all we're doing. We need to have the cost figured out and explained to us exactly, Kevin. This is not an adequate report. Okay?
So I guess
No action asked for on this report.
So material purchase, labor.
Yes.
Like
And by each
purchase,
one of
labor,
Yeah.
purchase, labor.
Yeah.
I mean, just in a nutshell, very succinctly here, what I'm saying is, you show me a cost to buy $663,000 worth of new Zinners, and then you show me a cost of replacing the batteries in the existing ones, but that's not just the cost of the batteries, that's the labor to replace them also. So then on the 663, I would expect to see that to include the labor to R&R them, but I'm not seeing that. So it's not apples to apples.
I was trying to explain my reasoning behind it, because it is apples to apples under my reasoning, but if you don't want me to debate it, that's fine.
No, we don't need that. We need
Because it is apples to apples.
We need you to rewrite it for Cliff.
Okay.
Will be satisfied, because he's the one that's been championing the batteries all along, and he needs to have a fair answer, and he doesn't feel like this is fair.
Okay.
So bring it back next month with the changes in it. Talk to Cliff about it. We don't need to take the time tonight.
I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Do we want to, while we have Jim here, is there any questions on the actual Zinners or the battery replacement that we want to ask and get out of the way so that maybe Jim doesn't have to come here next month. We'll just have our cost.
Ask Jim some questions and.
Did you have a presentation, Jim?
I was more prepared to ask or answer questions.
Mike, come on, please.
I was more prepared to answer your questions with whatever you had.
Okay.
You said, hey, maybe we could get a little update, and I can certainly give you an update. I definitely have some more information that might be helpful in this. And so what we've done in relation to your question, your initial, Cliff, idea was, man, if it's the batteries that are going, let's replace the batteries. So that was the question. Is it the batteries that are going, or is something else going on? So part of our research, we said we want to dot our I's and cross our T's. So part of our research was to do our own in-house troubleshooting. And in that, we started getting a lot of questions. Asking ourselves a lot of questions. How do we do this and how do we do that? So we started reaching out to outside organizations. So what we found out was that it's not necessarily the battery. It's more so that this particular overseas vendor that put these things together used faulty components that were short-circuiting and causing the batteries to fail prematurely. And also the quality of the workmanship, which we definitely could identify was really substandard. So we're now looking at this saying, no, we have pretty strong evidence that the batteries are not necessarily the cause of this, that we're more looking at a unit. However, I have to go back at this. We have Laura's here, we've got great reporting right now by some steps that we've taken. So one of our steps was, hey, we're getting batteries. We have batteries coming, and we want to identify specific units that we now know how to identify that could potentially benefit from a battery replacement. So we're hoping that through that part of the research that we see some success. But we're also seeing a lot of non-reporting MIUs. And they're the fireflies. We did have repeaters that were failing. We had roughly 45% or so of our repeaters that weren't reporting in December and hadn't reported for quite a while. So the thought was, let's bolster the strength of this system by one of the major data reporters and see if we can't strengthen what is the major failure here. So we started replacing repeaters. Then we still were noticing that we were having fall-offs of the fireflies, but our reporting was really good. So then we contacted Zenner. We're in communication with Zenner, who is the stealth reader manufacturer, and they have a report that is available. Because I had mentioned to you before that there's an 8192 code that shows that a battery is starting to fail. It has a voltage value below its operating standard. So it's already going out, and then that's when we start seeing problems. Well, we can see the 8192 code here. Laura can pick that up. I can pick it up on our computer, and we go, oh, look, here's the 8192 code. That's one that's potentially in trouble with low battery voltage. So our idea is, and Zenner can make it available to us, is that we want to find these that have extremely low voltages because we're kind of identifying that at below 3 volts, these things are just dying. They're not communicating, they're not reporting, and they're not responding to a battery changeout. And we've taken hundreds now and tried new batteries in them, and they're not responding. They're not communicating back. They might give us a voltage read. They might activate. They might not activate, but they're not responding. So these things have literally failed. I'm calling around to different organizations, and I'm asking them what they found, and they found the same thing. The good news is, in my opinion, is that the stealth reader is really supporting our system. We're getting awesome reporting, and that's helpful to customers. It's helpful to us. It's invaluable to Laura and billing. It's just a really good system. Unfortunately, it looks like, and all the evidence suggests that it's a faulty MIU. One of the reasons that I believe that is really true, other than all of the information that I get from outside organizations, is that when we take a battery out of a failing or failed MIU and read the value across a multimeter, we're reading good, strong values. But when the battery is under a load, it drops that voltage down, and when that voltage sits down there for a period of time, which it appears like somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks, then the MIU itself dies, and it's non-responsive to a battery change.
Questions. You identified that the ones that are failing were the ones that were imported from a particular location or manufacturer?
Correct. We're able to identify that with the serial numbers.
Yeah. So if you find one, so if we assume those are suspect and we say, it's not worth messing with those because we know those are going to be bad. Okay. What does that leave us of the others percentage-wise that could benefit from a change-out battery?
So I'll try to answer that succinctly. I think we have two things. I think that some of these are going to benefit from a battery change-out. We don't know which ones those are until we put a battery in there and try it. So the information that we got from 2 or 3 at least that did full-on battery change-outs is that, they got great responses initially, but then as they started going through their system and changing more batteries out, they were finding that they were going to these same MIUs within a year or two and having to change that battery again.
So in other words, they were pulling more of a draw on the batteries than they should be, causing the batteries to die prematurely.
Correct. And that's why we attacked the repeaters, because we were thinking, man, if they can just start carrying some of this load and maybe take some of that load off of there, then that could be beneficial. And as we go through and we start putting more stealth readers in and getting these bad Datamatic Fireflies out, then we can start seeing some more positive reactions.
Okay, so is there a way to determine if the battery had failed or if it just was dying because it had too big of a load against it?
Due to the circuit board?
If you could
someone has done that, Cliff, somewhere along the line. Datamatic actually made a verbal admission to the fact that they knew that the components were inferior components. They weren't the ones that they had spec'd out, and that some of them were short-circuiting, causing premature degradation of the batteries. So that right there, and then Sacramento Municipal Water, I think is...
City of Sac.
City of Sac. Yeah. They were able to determine that the components were part of that fault.
Because it's pretty simple. Either the battery is defective or the load on it is greater than it's supposed to be. If the load on it's greater than it's supposed to be, and we can determine that, then you can junk those when the battery fails and replace them with a Zinner, because there's no hope of having any longevity if you put a new battery in it and it pulls more amperage than it's supposed to, kills the battery that much quicker again. So if we can identify the difference between the two and say, this one's failing because the battery's defective, put a new battery in it, you're going to get life out of it. If it's failing because the unit is pulling too many amps, trash it, because you're going to be putting a battery in it every year or two. You might as well just put a new unit in.
So
that's where I think you ought to spend your time, is trying to determine
the difference
between the two.
Which is what we want to do with the batteries that we replace, and they'll be in at the end of the month. So that's part of that, and we want to identify some very specific units to replace those batteries in based on our voltage values that Zinner gives us from the whole system. So we definitely are going down that path. We do know, and I can tell you this, almost 200 that we did very specific battery tests on outside of the unit that failed, we're getting the voltage reads across that battery that we're getting across a brand new battery, or very, very close to it.
Okay, Even a defective battery can give you a full voltage reading with no load. But what I'm saying is, can we not get from them a milliamp draw from that circuit board when it's functioning like it's supposed to be, and then test that board with the new battery in it to see if it's pulling more milliamps than it's supposed to. And if it is, then it's defective. Don't waste any more time on it. We should be able to get that information from
I think I follow what you're saying, Cliff, and let me and Jim work out a strategy, and when it comes back next month, we'll write that out. But I'm pretty sure I follow
that would,
your logic.
I mean, in a nutshell, that's the quickest, easiest way. You got a defective unit, okay? Let's see if it's drawing more, it'll be milliamps. Let's see if it's drawing more current than it should, because that'll tell you that the battery wasn't defective, the unit was.
We can get that information. Actually, I believe that information is available straight through Zinner, and when we talk to them, I think they're going to be able to give that to us right out the gate from reading their map, what they have to do. And it takes a little bit of work and effort, and the timing has to be right, because it interrupts or puts a draw on the system when they interrogate the system for these voltages and the response of these MIUs. But they can give us a total system value like that. So
this is very technical. I tried to stop you a while ago to ask what a MOU is. I have no idea. And it's going on for a long time. So why don't you talk to Cliff about it? We don't need to go through all of this in the board meeting. You and George talk, Cliff gets involved, and get it figured out where we can have a concise report that takes about 5 minutes, Jim. So, okay?
Good luck.
That's what we need for these board
Okay, I actually have one more question. So Zinner as a company, we know Datamatic didn't do too good. What is the strength of Zinner as a company?
That's what I wanted to ask you.
Because if we're going to invest and if we're going to make the decision to buy a 20-year warranty, 20-year warranty is no good if they're not going to be around for 5 years. So
I actually have an answer to that, because Kevin asked me that question.
I actually know the answer, but I want the public to know the answer.
So Zinner Corporation is about 113 years old. They've been doing metering and automated meter reading for many, many years. They're not only in the water industry, they're in gas and electric metering. They're into wastewater metering. They've been doing it for a number of years. They actually came about doing this stealth reader when Datamatic had their little whoopsie there. So they came in backwards from that technology, and they developed the stealth reader to integrate with this. So it appears to be a very strong company that's been around for a very long time.
I just want the public to know.
We'll also say that I was on the phone with Rich Sanders, who's the president of Zinner, and was asking him questions and trying to get knowledge of Zinner and of what goes on, because he was also involved with Datamatic. So he is more than willing to take his time to come out here and talk to all of us and let us know exactly what's going on with this, and his opinion of moving forward. Obviously, follow the money. His opinion is this is an excellent system, and it is an excellent system. I think the 7,800 number is probably less, because I think that there are a couple of water districts that have thousands of them, thousands of the original 2005, 2004 Fireflies in their system still.
With the different circuit board.
I think
some of them are, some of them aren't. Some of them are from that vendor.
So. At the end of the day, I think what we need to arrive at is, are we wasting our time looking at the batteries? Are we money ahead to just replace the units when they fail with the new ones? And I brought the issue up with the batteries because it's a logical place to start. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. I'm not going to sit here and say, yay or nay. Let's take the time to look at it. Let's cut to the chase and say, here's what it's going to take to either fix it or not fix it. Here's what it's going to cost, and then we'll come back to the board and we'll decide.
Truthfully, that's why I wanted to come tonight, Cliff, because I think that really, based on the evidence that we're seeing, the advice from other organizations is get the Zinner, if this is what you're doing, and we need to integrate with the system that we have, the mesh system, because we don't want to go to another automated meter reading system.
Okay.
Let's get these Zinner stealth readers and get them in the system. Just start moving forward with that. I think if we do that and we get a robust program going, that we're going to find that we can more quickly support these ones that are potentially going to fail. So let's just get the Zinner.
Then let's put
We might possibly
put that together and bring it to the board then, and let's make a decision on it one way or the other. Bring enough facts that we can look at it and say, this makes sense. The hell with the batteries. We're wasting our money and our time.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
We might be able to
make the best decision we can and go forward from here.
And we did a lot of homework, and when we look at that, and I understand what you're saying about the load, because that's part of that. We'll get that from Zinner, and we'll do that.
Are we going to, that also might give us the ability to eliminate some repeaters because of the
It
strength
looks
of the...
as that's the case, and Zinner can do a map for that, and I think we can reduce that amount from about 573 to somewhat less.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted the public to know that I know Zinner's a strong company. I've already done some investigation on that, that we're not reinvesting money in something that is going to fail again and or has a potential for the company to go belly up like Datamatic. Even though we didn't pick Datamatic, that was picked by Chevron, I believe. Just want you
Okay, Laura wants 1 minute, please.
And what Sep's saying this is to Lorene, today, with all the problems that we've got going on, we actually had reads coming in over 99% of our system. That's the best I've ever seen. So what we're doing, it's actually doing well. And the money that we're paying on the system is unreal. You talk to any other water districts out there that have this system, they aren't getting the information like what we're getting. Our system is superior, including the infrastructure that went into this. George and Kevin did a great job on it.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Jim. We're going to move on now. Next month, it's going to be.
I just think when the public's, factoring in that we spent $5 million. By the way, I was not on the board when that decision was made, although that's been what's said around town. That this is something that we didn't need, that it didn't do anything for us. But our return on investment on that, even though it's cost us some dollars in the long run, that's it.
This enough.
Thank you, Mr. President.
We considered two different systems, and it's history. We don't need to go back over it. We never imagined not having an automatic system. It was how it was put together. And so let's go on with the meeting. I've done this with Larry in conservation meetings. I realize there's an election on, and we want to do things, but we've got to stay in business, not tomorrow. You've had your chance. This is it. This goes back to the. This is it. It's coming back to the board next month with a better report from Jim, more concise, with a better financial report from Kevin, and with Cliff involved. So we don't need to talk about it anymore tonight. Okay? It's off the agenda. We've done it. We have a lot of work to do before we have a satisfactory report. And that's very evident. So let's go on with the next thing on the business, and that's the long-term conservation state proposed regulation.
You didn't allow the public to speak. Go ahead.
Write a letter. Long-term conservation state proposed regulations, Manager Barber.
This was brought forward as old business at the request of the president last month. There's no new updates. There has not been action that I'm aware of on long-term.
No, I was going to speak to short-term. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, this is only long-term. So as far as long-term goes, we got our letter in, and it hasn't been heard or dealt with yet. So no new information. I think you asked to have it brought back this month in case the board members wanted to add or subtract or change our direction of the letter that was written.
Anything else, George?
Nope.
Okay, so there's really nothing to be talked about tonight about that. The next one, going down this, because I took things out of order. Now I have to figure out what I'm doing. The next thing is standing committees of the district. I'm sorry, in this ward, I must have missed things. These are our, what do we call these committees? They're not standing, they're...
Ad hoc?
No, they are standing committees.
No, they are standing committees. Okay.
But there was two different things. You were appointing members to it.
Yeah.
And then you requested an agenda item to discuss public members being added.
Yeah, but it's a separate from me pointing, and now I would like to go to standing committees of the district, public members. Consider appointing 2 to 3 public members to all PID standing committees. This would be for, I didn't put down action will be taken, but I wanted to have it on the agenda to make people aware that these committee meetings are open to the public whenever they're held. You can come in, whether you're a public member or not, but if you're in the community and active and have a bill from us, you can come in and have your 2 cents in those meetings. So what I'd like to do is have the committees themselves consider this, and that they would bring it back to the board for any action. So if they'd like to have public meetings. There was some objections in the past to having public members on this board. Anybody want to comment on it?
There's just some committees that you can't have public members because of confidentiality. That's the only restriction.
Administration and personnel.
Right.
Finance would probably be okay.
Tom Lice and you would.
Administration and personnel is definitely one you can't have public members on.
You could if you decided to split it, so that you just had an administration committee and then a personnel committee.
Personnel,
separate.
you'd have to have 2 different committees.
Separated this 2, then you certainly could.
Yeah.
But as administration and personnel,
Since under their current definition, it would depend on the agenda.
Yeah.
Sometimes they wouldn't be invited.
yes.
Any more comments from anybody? Anybody from the public want to comment on this?
Is this all the standing committees? Is there a second page to it?
Yes, all the standing committees. It'd be up to the committees themselves to decide what they want to do, and then bring it back to the board for the board approval. So, it's just, I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention and have a discussion a little bit about it. So, the next one on the agenda is Employees Retirement Program. On this, I've changed the order. I put down that the little I's 2, consider appointing the Finance Committee to oversee the selection process for a retirement plan provider and making a recommendation to the full board. The idea behind this way we can have as much public input as possible in a committee. Kevin can present his ideas on how to structure it for RFP. I think that's the right initiative. And to that committee, and it allows the employees to come to the committee, as many as they want to come, to have their say about their retirement program, who they would like to have as the firm that would take over because it's employees' money. I would hope that this is what the committee, Finance Committee, that's why one of the reasons I wanted to get the committee assignments out when I did tonight.
So you want the public to be able to?
No, just.
Well, I think you meant employees, but you said public to be able to come in.
I don't imagine there's going to be too many interested from the public, but certainly the
Well,
employees.
the public couldn't even get in. I mean, on the proposal they could, but they couldn't get into the accounts.
No, nobody can get into the accounts.
Yeah,
not even the employees. George wants to speak to this.
May I present my thoughts on how this was going to proceed, and I would have done it on the previous item. But my thoughts were to establish an employee committee with 4 employees and Kevin and I that would start the process with this RFP. And in that RFP, we're going to invite a lot of companies. And that committee of employees and Kevin and I would review the written proposals. We'd invite some of them that we wanted to hear from to present to that committee. So it'd be narrowed down after the written proposal. Then we'd narrow it down again and actually have presentations for all the employees. So they would hear it out. And then we'd bring the the top 2 or 3 to the board for consideration. That was how I was going to proceed with this, just to explain how we had anticipated bringing this forward. We are going to invite a lot of folks to this. There's quite a few out there. So if you have a finance committee and you want some employee involvement, then a lot of those committee meetings would likely be during the work hours, so that we could allow them, employees, to hear it out. So just for your information, that's how we were kind of planning on proceeding, but the board can direct us however they want to proceed.
I'd like to hear how the employees would like this to, since it's their money and it was their decision that we needed to have go out for RFP. I would like to hear if they have any suggestions how they would like this process, if they like it the way George is presenting, which I think is a good way, kind of narrows it down. You guys kind of take some of the burden off the board. We're not paying the finance committee $100 meetings to be there until you guys have narrowed it down to the top 4 or something like that, and then maybe they join in. Is there any comments from you guys? Or thoughts on it?
The process worked well last time, which is similar to what George mentioned.
That's the way we did it before,
Right.
but I want to make sure the employees are happy with that because this is their money. This is not the public's money, and this is not the board's money.
We did twist it a little because we're bringing in employees to that first.
Exactly. So that's I know that was the difference. I knew that was the difference, but I want to make sure the employees are happy with that decision.
I would like to mention that the results of the last committee appointment and the process you went through was not very satisfactory. And I'm not going to go into all the details that went on to the politics of this thing. I think for the employees, the best deal is to go through the committee. George and Kevin will be on the committee and work through it and work with the committee members. I don't know if any of them want to go back to ICMA or have some ideas on a local person that might do it, a financials advisors. Locally in the community where they're known publicly, they have a reputation that is known within the community of how straight shooters they are, how well they work with people, and so forth. I don't think we need to go through this thing here where we have points scored, we have all this other thing going into it. I would rather, the way I do business, people is who you want to work with, and I think it's extremely. I didn't interrupt you.
I was saying bless you.
Oh, somebody sneezed.
Oh, yeah. Any rate, I think it's really important that the employees have their input in it. It might take a couple of meetings to get something done, but the results, I think, will be much better than the last time we went through this. And that's why when I saw what was coming, or was told about what was coming on what Kevin's put together, I put this in the minutes because I don't think that's the way we want to go and treat our employees. Not just 4 employees speaking, and those 4 employees in a basically closed meetings and so forth can be intimidated. So I want it open, like there was 30 people that signed on this petition to get rid of what we had and have an auditor come in and check the accounts afterwards, and we agreed to that. So what I would like to see is, as much as possible, as the committee will decide how they're going to conduct business, have the employees involved. Now,
but Mr. President, can I ask a question? So you do not think it is better, and maybe the employees will be able to chime in on this, that they have their representatives, whoever they have picked to be their representatives, narrow this field down that could be possibly 20 different companies that want to have their money, narrow it down to a select group, maybe 6, and then they start bringing it to the whole employee group. We're going to be paying all our employees to go to all these meetings to narrow it down to or would we? I'd like to hear what the employees want to say. I mean, time for you guys to stand up. I need to hear it because.
Can I just walk through it's in the RFP, but my timeline and kind of my thought process, and I'll include the committee in my thought process too, that the committee will be part of the selection process, is that, one thing I want to clarify is that not every investment advisor has the ability to handle a 457 plan. A 457 plan includes multiple assets, multiple clients, multiple members. There's record-keeping involvement. There's insurance requirements. There's all kinds of different things that are required. So not every investment advisor has that ability. Second of all, I think that it's the more firms that you have bidding for the job, the not only are you going to get the better prices, you're going to get the best quality of that person for the best bang for your buck. So I think that's also important to make sure that you're getting all the most proposals you possibly can, looking at this to try to get to narrow that down. So my thought process was who's ever involved in this is that they are involved in the RFP process too. So they're going to go and look at the RFP. We're going to go through it. We're going to make sure that there's things that maybe that they want to see are involved in that RFP, because I think narrowing down the firms is first done by paper. So if it's not in paper, you're not going to be sitting down with every 20 firms face-to-face asking these questions. You're going to be going through the paper. So if you can narrow them down through the paper, you might want those answers in that paperwork that they're going to send back to you. The second of all is I have it down as about a 6-month process to get through this. That we send out this RFP, it's pretty extensive. We give them a lot of time to ask questions, to get their responses back to us. Once we get the responses back to us, then we're going to have a selection committee to go through those responses and to really kind of knock out the ones you don't want and maybe set aside the ones that you're looking at. Then we'll have selection committee presentations. So, if it's the finance committee that's on the selection committee, that's great. That we sit down and we look at these broad range of firms, and then we have presentations by them to see exactly which ones we really want to kind of move forward. If we want all of them to move forward, great, that's wonderful. That would be wonderful. Then I think that all of those firms that we decide to move forward are the ones that the employees, every employee sits down with those firms, they give a full presentation, they show them the websites, they show them all of their bells and whistles, they show them all of their investment opportunities. You get to ask them questions at that time. Even through this RFP process, you're going to have availability of calling other agencies out there that have them as their provider to ask the questions. Do you like them? What's bad? What's good? Everything like that. So that's going to be quite an extensive process. And then at the end, we'll bring it to the board, and then the board will have their opportunity to select it. But each one of those presentations is going to be an extensive, long day of presentation with those. So if the finance committee wants to be on there, that's fine with me, but it'll be a time commitment of that finance committee to those people that they're going to have to really invest some time into sitting down and working through this with us as we go forward. And being that we're having so many employees involved, it'll be during work hours that we'll be doing this.
You put me on the finance committee, didn't you?
Yeah, and this is why I'm saying in the initial process, I don't believe the finance committee is necessary until it's narrowed down. We're spending money on
I think I have something to say about this because I'm on the finance committee.
Wait a minute. It's getting out of hand. Let me recognize one person at a time speaking to this, and Cliff has the board.
Thank you. I think that you need to do your job, just like you explained it, and you need to find those firms that meet your qualifications, and you need to present all of those to your employees, and then the employees need to decide who they think would best suit them and bring those votes back to us as a board, and then we will look at that and what we feel the bulk of the employees. Hopefully it's something everybody says, yes, we agree with that, it's unanimous. But once you've noodled it down to those few and the employees are giving you their input, then you bring it to us, then we'll make a decision on it.
Dan?
I think if I'm understanding what everybody is saying, and I think you employees are getting the gist, is we would like your involvement to a greater extent possibly than the last time, because it's your money. And so, yeah, I'm in agreement with the plan, and I agree with you, Cliff. get it narrowed down, and then greater input from the employees towards the end. And then when you guys have finalized with maybe Cliff and I on the finance committee and a couple on staff, then it comes to the board. But I want to see you guys more involved. So.
Well, I believe that's what I initially said at the very beginning, so I'm
still
still waiting for, I still would like to know, do the employees have a group of representatives? Have you guys picked, as an employee group, have you picked some representatives that you would like to help, because we can't have all 40 out there, you've got to narrow it down, or however many.
4 of them or 6 of them, or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
May I?
Please.
Okay, I'm not going to speak for the group. I'm going to speak individually on this.
Thank you.
This is just for me. We're happy with that. Choosing of our choice representatives from each department. I am supportive of that. Having them go initially, and then bringing a narrowed down group of organizations that we look at and that we feel comfortable with, and that we all as a group say, yeah, let's go this way and present that to the board is what we need. So I appreciate what you guys are saying. Recognize us, because to me, this is part of the reason that we're here, to do this job and to serve the community, but then we get to retire too. And so this is our retirement. It's important to us. So to hear us and to be able to go with what has been presented, I'm in favor of that. So I let the other employees say what they feel about it.
So I have a couple questions, and I've been reading the RFP over the weekend. And was this the same thing that was given back before FTJ joined with us?
We never presented a formal RFP.
Okay, that makes sense. Because there's things in here we're looking at and we're like, nope, we don't receive that right now. Nope, this isn't going on. The matrix, myself and a couple others just in discussion, we have an issue with the matrix. You can take right now Rick Moots and FTJ, go through that matrix, and it's going to look beautiful. Bottom line is what you're getting. And that can happen with anything that we do. But to have employees involved, we can never come back to you guys again and say, what are you going to do about it? This is a huge mistake. Having the employees involved, absolutely. I 100% agree on that. Trying to narrow it down to just say 2 employees in IBEW general unit is going to be difficult, because you do have people out there that are definitely interested. I mean, just in talking, I know of 4 people total in the general unit that are interested in being involved in this. How we would work that with our schedule, I couldn't begin to tell you. But the employees are definitely interested. They want to see what's out there and who can come in here and provide the best for us. So,
like I said before this RFP would go out, this would be something of discussion. And if they're not happy with the matrix, then I'm not putting this in stone. So.
I did this because I wanted the committee in charge and not management. Just flat. The management advises the committee. The committee makes the decisions of how many employees come in, when the meetings are, and what discussion. And the qualifications are we can use what you put together as a draft to make sure whoever comes to reply to this RFP is legit, can handle the thing, and narrow it down. That's where your evaluations will really be important to the committee. But the committee should run it, and they should decide how many employees come, when the times of the meetings are, and whether they're evening or daylight. I think these people would come in, after all, it's their retirement, they would come in and not be paid to come to a committee meeting. And it might be easier for both these men because they're fully employed
Evening
in their own
meetings.
businesses. So daylight is not a very good time for them to have meetings.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can we have them come in, or do they have to be paid for this? Would that be a non-paid item, or does
if it's a requirement that they serve on that, then yeah, it's business hours.
Volunteer.
Yeah, we can't volunteer hours if we're requiring them to be present.
Okay, so if we're saying they're going to be on this committee to help make this decision, that's not a volunteer status, correct? So then we would be paying them for evening status.
But why would it be a requirement if they choose their own people and volunteer to meet in
Our
the evening?
fiduciary responsibility as a board is what the requirement is, so we're making sure the employees are happy. So if we are saying this is the set committee, then we are paying them. End of story, actually. So, I mean,
Okay,
there's
let's
not.
not go into that. It's the time.
Well, this relates to what, how you're.
That's enough,
you're
Seth. That's enough.
This definitely
Thank you.
relates to, people are always worried how we're spending
Seth,
money. This relates
this
to
is
how we're
enough.
doing that. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. All right.
Just
Bill,
a quick
go ahead.
idea I had, and you can throw it out if you don't like it, but if we had one committee meeting, you setting up the committee, and we had the employees that were picked to be part of that group, I think we could do it in one meeting. We hammer out what the RFP is going to look like. I mean, that's one meeting during the day that you guys have to lose out of your day. I think at that point the RFP could go out. I think the committee doesn't necessarily have to be involved in the next step, which is when all the companies come in and start reporting to the employees. As long as the committee is there to help set up the RFP to begin with and get the process rolling. And then maybe if we think the committee needs to come back in, we talk about it then. But I think it's not a huge time commitment right off the bat anyways on the committee's part to have one meeting to set this RFP up and get it sent out.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Thank you, Bill.
I agree.
I have one more question for Kevin. How many companies actually applied the first time before we took on FTJ?
I believe that there was 8.
8?
And we narrowed it to 6. And then we narrowed it, for the employee presentation was 6.
And did you reach out and contact these companies, or did you mail some?
I reached out and contacted them.
Okay.
Is there any more comments from the audience?
Were the employees not involved in the selection last time?
They were involved. There was so the last time there was 8 that responded to myself. I think me and George met with them. We narrowed it to 6. The 6 all presented to the employees. The employees had a rating scale that was, I forget what the questions were, but there were questions and they rated them from 1 to 5. We took the highest ratings, the 3 with the highest ratings, and we brought those to the board. They presented to the board, and then the board selected from that point.
So the employees were involved in the selection the first time around, so.
Yes.
How many?
But not as much.
How many? 3, 5, 10?
Every employee.
Well, I mean initially, but then when it started narrowing
So
down,
there were 6 companies that presented to all employees.
all employees.
And
Okay,
how
that's
did
what
the
I was
employees
wondering.
get their feedback to ultimately us, the board, after those
That was the rating.
presentations?
They
That was
did
through the
rating.
rating
That's
of
the rating
questions.
process. that you just
Employees
mentioned.
did ratings.
And we use that as our tool.
Basis for
to
hiring.
Make our decision. And did we go by what they, ultimately, the majority of them had asked?
I don't remember.
It was the top 3 were very close in their ratings, all of them. And so I don't know if the one that was rated highest by the employees was the one selected.
Okay, that ought to be the criteria next time around. The majority selects it.
Can I have a motion from somebody before we do something on this? It looks like we're going to have a compromise.
So if you would like, what we can do is we can then give this to the finance committee. We can call a finance committee to go over the RFP, set a schedule of how the finance committee would like to see this handled. If they would like to be involved at any step in it, then we can make sure that those are included in those steps, and we can proceed.
So moved.
You don't need a motion.
Well,
I was going to say, I don't think we need a motion.
I think they'll, if you want a motion, the best motion would be, I move to have the finance committee involved as they see fit in the selection process.
That's what Sepp said, I think.
That was substance. I second it.
Thank you, because we want the vote of the board recorded, and this is any more discussion?
That
Absolutely.
Public?
Yes. If they're that interested, maybe a wife will want to come in or a husband,
Public.
who knows?
No, I meant you want the public to talk about this motion before we
He
vote
just
on it.
asked and they didn't respond. Oh,
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, what,
You didn't do it.
Georgiana, what's the motion?
The motion is to have the finance committee involved as they see fit in the selection process.
Correct.
Bob Dickinson. Judging from the last meeting when the employees were here and made a verbal complaint, I had some thoughts and questions on how their program, and I still don't really know how the program works that they're under, but I got the impression, and I hope you correct me if I'm wrong, are they paying for their own management of it? Or is that being sponsored through the PID to the public?
No,
for these guys?
so each account does pay for their own administration fees associated with handling of the 457. So yes, so each employee is paying. So there's two levels. There's the individual has the direction, self-directed on their investments, and then there's a managed direction. So they pay a manager to basically direct their investments.
Basically, it's like anybody for themselves to manage it and monitor it.
Correct.
And for myself, working in the industry, that's a big mistake for the employees. The financial responsibility of managing that to make sure that they don't get thrown under the wheels of a cart like that happened to them, it should be monitored by the company, PID, and incur those costs. And that way there, whatever you work out for the money management, the costs go to the PID. You might have to reduce your matching accounts to pay for it, but they'll be able to have multiple plans to choose from, and they won't be getting gouged or thrown under the bus. Won't be left out there. They can come directly to you.
Yeah, we under the laws, we're not allowed to be investment advisors to our employees.
That is not investment. I'm saying you control the cost. If you're controlling the cost, you're going to be monitoring whoever is managing the account.
No, that's what we're going to be doing going forward.
Not passing the cost on to them for that.
right. Thank you.
So that's part of this new RFP is that it will be structured so that the fees of administering that program are borne by PID and not the employees?
No, that.
Because as Kevin just explained, that doesn't work.
And just remember this also is that there's the administration fee, there's the advisory fee, the administration fee, and the fund cost fee. So those are all three different fees. If the district wants to absorb every single person's administration fee, that's up to the district. The way that traditionally things have been done is that the fees are included inside of each individual's account, and they're based on the individual choice of how they invest those funds.
What would the fees? What would the annual fees be approximately for the existing employees that you have now if PID were to take over those fees?
Cliff, that's the kind of thing I suppose that we in the finance, we can start working out.
Because I pay all the fees for my employees on their 401k, and I don't know why we couldn't structure it where it wouldn't be an issue for them. That misbilling would have been our problem, not theirs.
$30,000.
A year. Okay, that's why you're on the finance committee, and that's why you're doing this.
We got some work to do. Okay.
We can work with that.
We'll do it.
Okay. Would somebody call for the question?
It'll happen.
No, don't have to call for it. You can call the vote.
Yep, we've already motioned and second, so.
The question call is for the cutoff debate, and that's it. So that's why I'm calling for the question.
President usually doesn't call for the question.
I realize
Okay.
that's the way
Question.
it has been done in the past.
Question.
Question. Thank you.
Okay,
We'll have a
Robert
vote.
Rules of Orders, when you call for the question, now you got to vote whether you're going to do the question. That's Robert Rules of Orders.
Georgiana, there'll be a roll call vote, please.
On the question or the vote?
On the vote.
The motion, yeah. Yes.
Director Duncan?
Yes.
Director Corolla?
Yes.
Director Jacobson?
Yes.
President Kellogg?
Yes. Thank you all for contributing, and we've got the message across. That's all that matters. Let's see. Statement of investment policy, that's the next thing.
Thanks, guys, for taking time.
Yeah, this comes before the board every year. I'm recommending that there's no change to it. It basically outlines the requirements that we are under for investment of the district's funds. It is governed by a California code, and that this basically mirrors the California government code. So if there's any questions, I can answer any questions. If not, it's the same as it was last year.
Any questions? It says action may be taken.
So yeah, just it's just to approve it.
I make a motion to continue with
To reaffirm.
Reaffirm there.
to reaffirm the investment policy as presented.
Second. 2 seconds. And question. Anybody call for the question? Larry?
Question.
Dan.
Dan did.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. It's unanimous. We're doing all right on our time, too. We don't have to worry about the meeting duration business. But we will take a recess. It says a recess here. And then we'll come back for the 4 things that are, we got rid of some of the things. So we'll have staff and billing report.
Looks like we have a closed session item, too.
Closed session.
Yeah.
I wonder if he saw the reward.
When did Mark show up?
He was here from the beginning.
Was he here? He's just been hiding behind Ann.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to see that they actually decided to come to these last meetings.
Oh, boy, it sounded like everybody's enjoying themselves tonight.
No popcorn.
No popcorn, huh? No popcorn. Okay, committee reports is the next item on the agenda. Butte County, Butte Local Aging, LAFCO.
Right.
Director Larry Duncan.
Right. We had our meeting on the first Thursday of the month, and we continued the PID annexation thing. There was some questions that needed to be answered, and then we approved an extension of service to cheat one of the properties in Chico. I believe that's all we did.
Any questions of Larry on the LAFCO meeting? You said it concerned something with PID?
Yeah, it was that annexation of those properties that.
Pennington's and.
Oh, the 2 properties?
Just one of them.
Just one of them?
Yeah.
Okay. This is going through?
It was continued.
Oh, it's continued. All
Yeah.
right.
George appeared, and he was hoping they could not. They were including a road in the boundary lines, and he was hoping they wouldn't do that. But according to our attorney, it has to be done. So that means the guy has to resurvey it. Did you find out how much it's going to cost him more?
No, I got an email late this afternoon. I haven't read it yet.
This is the customer?
Yeah.
It'll cost more?
Yeah, he has to survey the road.
Mm-hmm.
The next
There's
one?
2 more coming forward.
Oh, okay.
But they haven't been at LAFCO yet.
Anything else? George, you have anything more that you want to say about this? Okay. Water Conservation Meeting, Committee, Directors Duncan and myself. I'm the chairperson, but I'll let Larry talk first if there's something you want to report on.
You know more about it than I do.
Well, that's only because they gave me a minutes for really nice written up minutes for a change, and I'm not having to report.
I have the minutes too, but I figure I'll let you do it. I'll delegate it to you, the chairman.
Oh, okay. We talked about water supply update. George Barber, talked about our supply storage is super full, and I guess you could say it's still super full. And Superintendent Pastorini explained that the treatment plant is releasing excess water over 2,200 feet elevation from McGalley Reservoir rate of 125 MGD into Little Butte Creek to keep the reservoir down in 2000. You have pictures in the agenda showing the releases, and is also in the minutes here, that the water actually, what is it, we're releasing more water than we used all last year or something like that?
Over a 11-day period, we'll release more than we used all of 2016.
That's how huge amount of volume of water. So I think nobody would argue now about the drought being over for Paradise Irrigation.
Except the state.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
They're the ones that count.
We're the only ones, the only people that count are the ones that will argue it.
So, water conservation, we talked about, statistics was presented, and annual treatment figures from 2005 and 2016. They're in the report if you want to look at them. Aquahawk increased now to 2,700 users. It was an increase of 300 period of time that the Aquahawk was used, almost a year. We talked about design of a proposed landscape project, and that's concerning a garden area out here and some of these islands that come down, putting landscaping on them. And we talked about using deer-resistant plants that are also good for butterflies and birds for pollen, like hummingbirds. And we talked about the different things to put in. And it's a slow process as we go through. The little gal that works for Jerry Menden, he volunteered her services, and she's done excellent work. She knows all these different plants, scientific and names, and how they hold up against deer use and everything else. And so she's going to come back with working with Pastorini and on now. We have a fellow running for office, and I keep forgetting his name, which is not unusual for me, and I'm not picking on you, but he's volunteered to help with the list of plants.
Wally Schmidt?
Wally Schmidt. He's volunteered to help. He's been coming to our meetings. And then, it's written in here. All I had to do is read. And we think we're going to come up with a good project. I've talked about putting a fountain possibly in the garden, and the more I think about it, it might be a nice thing. And the other night I thought, well, geez, that'd make a nice memorial to Doug Flesher. But at any rate, we haven't talked about that in the committee yet. So we're moving forward one step at a time, and we hope by the time the rains stop, we'll have a plan and we can plant some plants and put in some sprinkler system and everything else. So that's the Water Conservation Committee report. General Manager's report, George?
We have my written report. I do have a couple things to add. It was referenced in Jim Passanisi's report about our DCBM, dichlorobromomethane violations. So we got formally notified by the state. There was 6 in 2016. They carry a $18,000 mandatory minimum penalty, and we've sent in our letter of request to apply our efforts on the processed water recycle project against that so that we don't have to pay it. Hopefully they'll accept that again.
Is that per incident?
$3,000 per incident.
Per
yeah.
incident.
Okay. I also wanted to report, where's my notes? Trying to find it. Jim Passanisi also renegotiated our pricing from NTU Technology for our cationic polymer, non-ionic, and aluminum chlorohydrate. So we got a 8.3% reduction on the cationic, 1.8 on the non-ionic, and a 4.2 reduction on the alum. So
is that upcoming expenditure?
Yes.
Are they going to go out for bid?
I have to check with Jim. I think he was doing phone bids, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
The The other thing I wanted to cover was the hazard mitigation grant. So I apologize, I was a little bit vague in what that actually would build. I put in the estimated cost, but maybe it wasn't clear exactly what we were actually going to accomplish if we're successful. The grant itself is 75% funded, and what we've presented for proposal is a new standby generator. Would be one component of the project. Another component would be the relocation of the 42-inch pipeline in the same manner as we're proposing in the process water recycle project. A third component would be an A-zone pumping pipeline and pumps at the treatment plant. So if you remember the A-zone pipeline, right now our 42-inch gravity feed line is our only delivery from our treatment plant to the distribution in town. The A-zone pumping would not only improve our supply there, better A-zone pumping would help us have a better minimize the size of the B reservoir, and it would also provide an emergency supply. If something happened to the 42-inch, we would have minimum indoor use supply to all of our customers. And then it would also update hydrology study for potential flooding impacts to the treatment plant and what's going through Magalia Dam. That hasn't been updated in a considerable amount of time. And it would also fund a second look at the Magalia Fault. So if you remember, we did an initial contract with a local geotechnical firm, and they were able to identify what they felt the fault projection line was, and then did a excavation out in the field and their determination and ultimate conclusion was that the Magalia Fault is inactive. It's too old. When that was presented to the Division of Safety of Dams, who has to accept that report, they didn't discount the work they did, but their team of experts think there may be other possible projections for that fault. So they would not accept an inactive designation until further investigation and evaluation done, which means evaluating a different fault projection, more digging, trenching, and field investigations to rule out this other potential direction. It's quite a chase you have to do to prove a fault's inactive. So this would help fund that. So I wanted to make sure you all understood what those projects were that we're going through. So we applied at the state level. Butte County Office of Emergency Services worked with us and helped us. We made that application. The state reviewed it, asked some questions. We fine-tuned it a little, and then they were satisfied with it enough that it got forwarded to the FEMA, who's actually the holder of the funds, and FEMA is in the decision process. So I've been answering emails and clarifying questions over the last couple of weeks that have come through the FEMA process. So it's usually a good sign if they're asking you questions and want to understand your project or your proposal better. So keep our fingers crossed on that one. Last thing I want to...
I asked you some questions.
Yeah.
Didn't we get a new generator there not too long ago?
The treatment plant?
Yeah.
That was B.
No, treatment plant hasn't been replaced since the plant was installed.
Isn't that the B pump station? D? B?
It was A-zone pumping.
A-zone pumping.
Yeah.
That's where we had the new one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or we actually upgraded that one and put in telemetry, I think. I don't think it was a full new unit.
Yeah.
The pipe you're talking about for the one we've been talking about for at least 10 years, and I'm aware of, replacing across the creek. The
42-inch relocation,
which
yeah.
don't have any reinforcing rod and braces underneath it. the concrete. They were drilled out some years ago and found
Correct.
no. And we talked about replacing that years ago for about $12,000, I think, because this is only a short piece across the creek, maybe 60 feet, I think. But if you go to the water treatment plant, that thing has changed directions, and it's got at least 200 feet or more in it because you've taken it down a different way from the plant, not going going across the creek in another place. With that design, if I'm not mistaken.
Are you talking about the proposed design?
The 42-inch replacement across the creek.
Yeah, the proposed design would be to move it completely out of the creek and not cross the creek anymore. That's how we would solve the problem.
How are you going to do that?
Pardon?
How are you going to do that?
You're going to tie into that big pipe that's across above ground that goes to the raw water tank. You tie into that, and then you go underground and tie into the treatment plant.
We were shown a diagram of that last meeting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So it would eliminate the crossing altogether, so you don't have to worry about flooding. We weren't just going to replace the pipe. The problem is the supports. They're one side's 10 or 12 feet high, I think, and it would have to be a complete concrete replacement of those piers, etc. It would involve a stream bed alteration permit at minimum, lots of environmental issues with just fixing the support where it is, and it'd still have a lot of risk to it relative to flood.
I don't understand, because you certainly could build an arch across there with nothing in the creek.
But you're crossing the creek, isn't that where
Just an arch across the creek and lay the pipe on top of it.
The state has an expansive view of what constitutes a creek. It's not just where the water flows. It's the bed, bank, and channel, and all the way up the sides. And
so this modification is not going to affect the fact that you still have to pull from Magalia Reservoir during times of high precipitation, is it?
No, this allows us to pull from either source still.
But even when it's raining now, my understanding is because of the turbidity in the water coming down from Paradise, that during rain you have to pull from Magalia because there's too much turbidity in the water going from Paradise down. Is that correct?
Not totally correct. Yes, when we get a first storm event and Paradise Lake is not spilling, we have to move from our bypass source to our Magalia source and pump it. Just talked to Bill Taylor about it today. They've evaluated alkalinity adjustments. They've evaluated turbidity. They haven't nailed down a true cause, but basically they lose the process to where they're not getting the dirt particles to form and get caught in the clarifier.
So I was told that the turbidity was excessive during peak rain season, or during a peak rain storm, and that was the reason that you had to switch to pumping it from Magalia Reservoir. Is that not correct?
It's not as simple as turbidity. What's happening is you have a flow that we're releasing from Paradise down. And then you get a storm event, so you're getting all of the runoff coming into the creek, blending with that, and that's changing the water chemistry so that you lose your process. Now, they've adjusted chemical feeds, etc., to try and fix that, but it's such a short-term event that it's very difficult to fine-tune it before you just have to
So dissolved solids go down, suspended solids are going up then, basically.
Not sure exactly.
Rain is...
Yeah. Could be. Could be alkalinity as part of it. Could be a combination of all of it. Because you get alkalinity off the tree, leaf runoff, etc. But I just want to remind the public that while it's an inconvenience and it doesn't taste very good, or it doesn't smell very good, it's a short-term event. And before the bypass was installed, we used to have months of that experience that our customers had to deal with. So while it's frustrating, for these short-term events, don't lose sight of the bigger picture that it is a shorter term happening.
If ultimately the Magalia Reservoir were able to be raised up to its proper level, then where you could gravity feed again, would that eliminate
Portion of it,
that
probably.
problem?
It would probably take a lot more effort studying it, because initially it was algae was causing the taste and odor issues, and that was further precipitated because the elevation of the lake, and it definitely got worse when it was lowered. So when you raise it up, you're going to get cooler water and less influence on the algae, so it's possible that would solve the problem.
Plus it's not sitting there as a dead leg you're using.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
You mean that you...
Plus, it's been so long since we had a full reservoir that who knows what the actual water was like, so.
What's the
Let's call
additional
Rick up.
capacity of that reservoir as compared to the water we lost because we've got it dumping right now to the tune of 125
That reservoir
gallons per day?
currently holds about 800 acre feet, and when it was full, it held 2,500 acre feet.
Whoa.
Triple.
So all the water that we're losing in 12 days, we could be retaining. What's that worth? What's the payback on that versus, I mean...
Well,
it depends on what the state does.
What we lost in 12 days, we could have filled that reservoir in 12 minutes.
It depends on how you want to deal with that. So on a local PID only situation, when I first got here and we were using 9,000 acre feet a year, that value was much higher. Now that our demands are 5,000 to 6,000 acre feet, then the cost of doing that is going to provide less benefit. If you were to sell that water on the open market, it was about $700 an acre foot last year.
Well, down the road with the restrictions the state's placing on us, what's the value or non-value of that added capacity? Is that going to be good for us or bad for us? And how do we prepare for that? How do we prioritize whether or not we need to spend our time and effort making that dam?
That's the reason the feds, state, county, they do it. We don't.
Yeah.
Or at least we try. Because it would not be cost productive, I don't think, for us, we, the ratepayers in the town, to ever do that. But because of it being a highway and so on, that's one of the things I hope to talk about.
I understand
too.
that.
If we can get the feds to pay for the majority of it, raise that whole thing, because instead of dropping down and then rising back up, if they could potentially raise the whole thing an additional 20, 30 feet.
My point is to prioritize how much effort we put on, whether it's grant funding or whatever.
Yeah.
What's the value of that additional capacity, and how important is it among all the other things we have to try and work on?
Right.
Well, I don't really think it bears on how high we rate it, because it's going to be how the state or the federal government rates it.
That's correct, yeah.
Let's take the dam debate off to another
Okay.
day.
Right.
Fair enough.
I'll go back to George's
That's a
report.
good.
No swearing, George.
That's a good strategic business plan discussion.
You're right. Long range.
Last thing I want to cover, we're still working through the North Lake Boat land acquisition. We finally got escrow open. We are waiting for a signature, and we've got a process to get the county to bless it that we think we can follow. So it seems like it's all going to come together, but it's just taking some time.
Is there anything else in your report?
No.
Dan wants...
I have a question. Can you synopsize in 40 seconds or less approximately what the BRES design project is? What is that entailing?
Okay, the current, I'll do it as quick as I can. BRES is basically a hole in the ground with a polypropylene bottom and a little
open swimming pool.
Open swimming pool with a floating top. So what the design project's going to do is it's going to evaluate and give estimates for options for making that a fully secure normal tank site. We are anticipating that if we don't get this grant from the federal government, our internal analysis is that if the A-zone pipeline was put in, the B-res could be much smaller, which that part of that answer would be formalized through this design process. And then ultimately, you'll get to a point as the process goes that if the board wants to build it, you'll get a complete design and estimate and bid package. And we've got approval. You know, once the state approves your planning level, then you're pretty much in good shape to get that same low interest financing to actually build it.
Are we looking at the best option would be to replace the swimming pool with a tank or a roof over the existing pool, or what's this will evaluate those options. Yes, yeah, multiple options. Okay.
Yep.
Any more questions for George? I think there's some from the audience now. No, the board members don't have any more.
I don't see Mr. Harvey here this evening, and one of the things that happened at the last meeting, he was all excited about the proposal of the plan that you brought last month regarding using the ponds, and now I see here it says on the process recycle project that you had a meeting today with them. And you mentioned something about it, but you didn't mention, you were talking about the permit and kind of on the negative side, but when we were talking last time in the minutes, you were providing the update on the alternative plan PID staff is evaluating for the proposed recycle project. And that alternative plan is what I haven't heard anything about. It's like it's gone away. Yeah, like you didn't mention that. You were going
I mentioned
back.
it in my written report that we're still working on it.
Okay,
so
but then the other thing that was in the minutes is that this decision to proceed for this will have to come in the first quarter of 2017, and we're at the end of January right now. So I mean, it's like we can't wait. I mean, but it's like
I can't ask the board to make a decision until I get all the information available for them to make a valid decision. So today we met to finalize some issues with the AECOM so they can complete their 70% design. And when we get that design and estimate, then we can use the estimate unit costs to put onto PID's alternative design, and that'll all be a presentation to the board. So,
okay, and I understand. I understand that process, but there was something also here, and that there was going to be, and I'm not real familiar with all. I don't know what all of this means, but I know that it's not being addressed tonight. That Jim Passanisi is developing a request, a proposal for receiving water study, which that was something that had to be done as part of this process.
Yes.
And so that could be being done right now, and I didn't see him doing any report on that.
Well, he's developing the RFP. So the next time it would come to the board is those proposals for the board to consider.
Okay, and this is all to help us with this NDPS. Okay,
Yes.
and you were just talking earlier about how they're pressing us for that. We've got to get that done, and that's why I'm wondering why isn't.
No, I was reporting that they're fining us for violations.
Do you remember when
those were all the fines during 2016? Though.
Well, they were talking about getting a consultation and being able to get someone to come in and revise that so that we wouldn't be getting the penalty. They would be. Maybe Ann could speak more to that because you were.
That's
more
the receiving water study.
And
I'm
so
sorry
I'm just
if it's
wondering.
not clear to you, but
it
that's
seems
the receiving water study.
We're on a tight timeline, and we're not addressing this, and it seems like this is the piece that we should be talking about. That's what I'm interested in. This is what's going to, cut the cost down. If we just put this on the back burner again, or we're waiting for things, then we're going to be right back with the whole recycle plant again.
Well, you can rest assured that it's not on the back burner. We're working on it. But ultimately, in fairness to everybody that's involved in the recall, it makes no sense to get a decision by a board until we know the board the public wants. So we're trying to get everything prepped until that decision is made, so that whoever ends up in these seats and that the public said this is who we're going to work with, they're the ones driving the decision. And so we're doing everything we can to line it up so that can happen once that decision's been made.
You also don't have all that requisite.
And we don't have everything, so we couldn't present it until we get it anyhow. But it's not on the back burner.
That was what I was making sure, because it was not really being addressed, and Georgiana had it really laid out in the minutes, because I remembered it from the last meeting with the diagrams and everything.
So
okay, well,
we haven't forgot. There was just no real new news to report.
I think what I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that just like before, we need to be a little more outspoken about what's going on, more public communication, so that you're not kept in the dark. Let you know where we're at. And I can read between the lines because that's what I do, but I get what you're saying. And I can see from what George is saying that he's working with Neil, and they're coming up with best practices to present. He's working with Jim, and Jim is doing testing and research so that we can go back to the Regional Water Quality Control Board and say,
here's
our plan. So they are working on it. I can see that. Maybe we just need to say, hey, we haven't forgotten about it, and we really are working on it. And as soon as we have something worth presenting, we will.
I just don't want us to be running out of a timeline.
We don't either. It's like number one item right there.
Thank you.
You bet.
Is there any more comments or thoughts from the public? Any more comments from the board? Ask questions of George? Yes, Dan?
The same observation, and that is we have not forgotten. You know that it's high priority with me, and in my discussions with Kevin and George, we're pushing on it. We're pushing hard. So.
Well, thank you for your report, George. I got to go look and see what we're doing next. Legal report.
Okay, thank you,
Dustin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll keep this to a one-item report because I know you have some questions for me. And this concerns short-term urban conservation. What the agenda item was earlier was the long-term urban conservation mandates. Nothing new to report there. There will likely be something next month. But on the short-term front, there was actually a workshop at the State Water Board today. It's hard to imagine this, but we are still operating under a statewide drought emergency. Even though we're flooded, Sacramento County declared a state of flood emergency, I believe today. Every major reservoir in Northern California is spilling. It doesn't make sense anymore. So the Water Board had a workshop. The staff is proposing an extension of their what effectively was their 2016 emergency conservation regulations. It didn't affect PID too much because we had enough storage to cover future demand, and so we essentially told the state that we didn't need to conserve anything. We're a 0%. Yes, and I was getting to that. There still is a mandate component to this that's a headache, and it would be a monthly reporting, as George mentioned. So there was a large contingent of water industry folks at that workshop today. I wasn't there myself, but I heard there was a lot of folks. urging the state that this, you've wrenched every bit of regulation and law out of this emergency that you're going to get. It's no longer an emergency. Turn it off and let us go back to our normal operations. So we'll see. This was just a workshop for the water board members to receive input. I'm not quite sure when they'll actually tackle this. Do you know? It may be at their February meeting, but I'll report on that again likely next month. And then, Mr. President, you had some questions for me on some of the bill items. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's on the board. It has this report. It's on the third page, and it's concerning some fees on large suppliers, urban water conservation regulations, Delta Plan Porata, I guess it is, share, Cal Water Fix Porata share, Porata share. Maybe you can explain I know what it means and I can read it, but I can't pronounce it right. What that means and what these bills are for.
Right. So a lot of, well, I won't say a lot of, some of my time is devoted to issues that are of interest to more than just PID. So when that's the case, I group my clients together and you're sharing equally in the attorney expense. So these 5 different matters are different issues that have come up that affect more than just PID. Consequently, I'm splitting the expense amongst more than one district. So let's take them in turn. The large supply.
Interrupt you, Dustin, for a minute. I know some of you are looking for the legal report. It only goes to the board because there's some confidential information in it that Dustin would rather not have made public, in comments on some of the other things in the report. So we've turned to a page that doesn't have any confidential information on it, and it's just talking about billing. So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. The fee itself is not confidential. What I'm concerned about is I have a pretty lengthy narrative of what I'm doing. If I charge an hour to do something, I try to describe exactly what I'm doing. And a lot of times in that narrative, that's where I'm concerned. Occasionally there's confidential information. But the fee that I'm charging is certainly public information. So back to your question, large supplier, urban water conservation, that's divided by 4 in 4. So the PID, this is of interest to you, obviously, mandatory urban conservation. It's also being split with Nevada Irrigation District, South Feather Water and Power Agency, and then Solano Irrigation District. The Delta Plan, the next item, Delta Plan pro rata share, that's split 15 ways. This has to do with the Water Quality Control Plan update. I've spoke to this board in prior reports. We've had closed session discussions on that as well. That's a big issue in the water industry right now. It affects PID directly, as well as many others, and you're sharing that 15 ways. The California Water Fix pro rata share, this is actually President Kellogg. You mentioned that are these litigation when you said you were going to question me about this. This is the only one that it's not actually a court proceeding. It's a water board hearing, which is similar to a court proceeding, but this is really the only one that I would say this is kind of like litigation. You're splitting this 9 ways. I have 9 different clients that are opposed to the California Water Fix. That's Governor Brown's Twin Tunnel project. PID and these other entities are protestants in that proceeding. And that was a decision the board made, I don't know, maybe 2015 approximately. The SVWU pro rata share, that's the Sacramento Valley water users. That's it's related to the California Water Fix, but that is actually shared by 12 of my firm's clients. So largely, slightly bigger group of clients sharing in that expense. Sacramento Valley Water Users is a joint defense group of a large group of Northern California entities. And this is, we're sharing in consultant expenses and joint defense of common issues. So this has come before the board, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 months ago. There was another kind of cash call. The way the joint defense works is there's perhaps 50 some odd parties, and if the consultant's budget for the year is $300,000, then there's a formula in that joint defense agreement where that cost is split. And I want to say it was 3 or 4 months ago, we came back to the board. Do you still want to continue with this? Here's the anticipated budget for the next period of time. And the board at that time decided to proceed. So my fee here is really just in managing those consultants. There's a lot of work product that they're putting together, both in WaterFix and the Bay Delta Plan, that I'm reviewing, I'm commenting on, I'm making sure it's a polished product. The final item there is SB 1049 pro rata share. This is a frustrating item in the sense that it's a classic example of how inefficient our legal system is. These are the state water board fees that were started in 2004 that have been litigated by other groups, not PID, but there has been litigation every single year on these fees since 2004. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court, back to the trial court. Now we're sitting in the appellate court again. The water users have won at almost every level, and the state has appealed repeatedly. I don't have the exact number, but it's significant. Over these 13 years. Do you happen to know, Kevin, how much we're paying per year? I want to say it's like $80,000. It's significant. This is essentially a tax. That's the essence of the litigation. This is a state tax that wasn't properly enacted. So what the fee is, and this is, by the way, shared 13 ways amongst different clients of the firm. We're seeking reconsideration of those fees. So we're essentially paying under protest every year since 2004. And the reason you do that is when this litigation ultimately ends, you hope that it's successful and you may be entitled to a refund. That's why you pay under protest. So I'm sorry for the lengthy answer, but any further questions?
No, I just wanted an explanation because your fees are, this month was $9,952. So since I've been on the board, Dustin's used to me. I'm always complaining about attorney's fees.
You're not the only one.
Thank you, Dustin. Anything else you're going to report to us?
No.
Anybody else have a question for Dustin?
I have a quick question, if you can not spend a lot of time on it, but if the twin tunnels go through, if they're approved, then will the Fish and Game or the other environmentalists force the state to take more water from us to flush the delta because they're pulling the water around it?
Yes, potentially. There's a number of concerns when I'm just focusing on PID. There's a couple big concerns. One is, depending on how you're operating those tunnels, if you're incredibly aggressive, you could bankrupt your system, right? You could bankrupt Shasta, bankrupt Oroville. Then the state's going to be looking for water because there's still 23 million people that need to flush their toilet and have drinking water, etc.
And so this leads into my other question earlier. Is it a negative or a positive that we have excessive capacity in Magalia Reservoir, if that comes to happen?
Yeah. Well, anytime you are perceived to have surplus in a time of shortage, it's risky. you could be perceived as hoarding. There are others that have more than PID. I mean, we can even if we were able to refill Magalia to full storage capacity, I think we can still credibly say, we don't really have a lot of surplus.
Sure, but I mean, it's the amount of water we need, and
yes,
how much we have is relative to our customers.
This is why keeping our full
to a bigger system, but it's still the same. It's all we got, and I'm wondering how that's going to play into whether or not it behooves us to not have excessive capacity up there or to have excessive capacity.
Well, my personal view, obviously this is board decision, but I think the more storage you can have, the better.
This is why it plays into our water rights too.
Right, exactly.
Our amount of permit and what we're going to license.
Perfected.
Yeah, exactly. But we're saying we need a certain amount, and
you can't perfect it when you've got a third of a reservoir. It's just it's stranded. It's a stranded investment.
So it sounds like that's still a priority then. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
Dan?
Talk to me about that afterwards. I got a comment.
Okay. Does anybody else, audience, have any questions of Dustin? Thank you all. Thank you, Dustin. Staff and billing reports.
I'll make a motion to accept staff and billing reports as presented.
Second. Have a second, and then we'll go ahead with questions now. Staff and billing report. Anybody have on any of these charts or so forth, water use and work in the district on fixing pipes and everything are in the staff and billing report? I'll have some if nobody else does, at least point it out.
I guess leaks are a low priority right now.
Well, but our lost water is
every leak we fix is just that much more water going into the Sacramento River, right?
We did have a pretty good one on Gate Lane late today, but
oh really?
Maybe it's.
You mean it slowed it down to where it only took 13 days to equal our monthly or annual flow?
It's not that big.
Yeah.
Is it our leak or the customer's leak?
It was our leak.
Our leak.
Yeah, I don't have any details on it.
I'll point out that the lake proceeds were the second highest that we've ever had out there, and I still think it is a very high priority that we keep the lake drawing in that revenue, and we have a place for the residents of Paradise to be at. We've opened it to year-round boating, kayaking up there, so and we should have a great kids fishing day this year. Hopefully we'll see this same kind of revenue that we had in 2015 and 2016. Good job to the guys up there at the lake.
I have one thing, 135, Kevin, since you make these charts. And I recommend to you change the colors because the copy we have in here is hard to see.
Those are Keith's charts. We'll get them to work on it.
Just some of the colors because they meld together by the time you print them out. They look great on the monitor, but they don't look.
You got to get with the program and quit using the old book.
Different glasses or something.
The one thing, pipeline insulation history for 2016 is 20 feet.
It's really chugging along, huh?
Yeah,
7,000 years we'll be done.
And
I don't think we'll ever be done.
I don't think any of us here are going to be live when it's done. I don't think it's just an ongoing project we've got to handle. Oh, let's see, I'm going through the pages. I agree with Sep on the lake. We're doing very well, considering all the rain and everything. It talks about activities this month, the engineering report on page 148, and it has engineering staff continued work on 2 annexations and resurveyed the monuments at the water treatment plant. Had those monuments moved? If they're what I think they are, I call them targets.
The wandering monument.
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay. So we have targets up there because there's settlement taking place, and We finally started surveying them about a year ago, I think, where they put the targets up, and actually we'll check them every once in a while to see if there's any settlement up there. And I've always been wondered about it because there's water treatment material tanks that have moved away from the wall of the water treatment plant a couple of inches and settling over the years. So, and our billing report on page 152, if you're interested, do we sell water outside the district, you'll see it's listed here on down at the bottom, Paradise Pines, Magalia, how much has gone out in acre feet. The upper Lime Saddle we don't sell water to anymore since they put a straw in the lake or pumping plant out of.
Just need to clarify for the public, just so I can clarify for the public, we're treating and delivering their water. So that's not our water that's going out of the district.
We're getting, what is it called, a wheeling charge? Yes. Is what we do, because we wheel their water through our district.
Where's the list of all the water we sell to Southern California?
We don't sell any water.
Somebody told me we did that.
Actually, you can't. It's not our water once it gets out of the reservoir.
I've got a comment on page 139, if that's permissible there.
Sure. What do you want?
On page 139, under the water treatment plant operational procedures, I noticed that the orthophosphate and zinc residuals, that was the product that we had an issue with a few months back, and then we started actually doing the titrations and testing throughout the system. And it says that they are at equilibrium throughout the distribution system since November 1st of 2016. And I wonder if maybe next time you could put in there that what the treatment residual readings were.
Okay.
I'd like to see, what are we talking about, a half a part per million, a quarter of a part per million?
We actually just recently dialed the feed rate back 20% to hopefully save some product and still be within the EPA guidelines of where those residuals should be.
That's what I was getting at. That's what I would like to have seen there. Good. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
How much money can we make, or how do you arrive at a figure for the water that we produce for Del Oro? We hopefully make a little, or there's a government restriction on how much you can charge over? Or?
We have a contract with Del Oro Water Company, and there's a calculation based on our facility costs and different things, and it equates to $1 per acre foot that we charge to treat and deliver that water. We can get you that calc if you want to see it.
No, as long as we're not losing on the proposition.
We made $240 then.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, we're up.
Oh, what's the annual? About 111,000 a year we get.
Yeah, that's acre feet. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? And we'll move on to...
Did we vote on the motion?
Yeah, we haven't voted on it. There was a motion and seconded.
To do what?
This is an actionable item.
To what?
This is an action item.
Oh, it is? Okay. All in favor, say yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Passes. Director's comments. We'll start with Dan and come down.
I've learned a lot in my visit with Kevin today, and I may have to do that for a few more times, and so that I don't waste a lot of time here. So, thank you, Kevin.
My pleasure.
I think that's an excellent thing for you to do. Larry?
I have no comments.
Seth?
I'd just like to say what could possibly be my last meeting here at the district. We'll see how that goes, but I'd like to thank everybody for all the help they gave me and everything is done. I won't get a chance to maybe come back and say that. I still think you're one of the greatest group of people to work with. Very proud to have been on the board. I really don't feel I want to leave the board right at this particular time, but we'll see how that goes. I'd also like to say that I'm very disappointed in the people of Paradise that obviously want the recall to go through. Out of the 25 signs that Larry and I bought, I've counted up to 14 either mutilated or stolen up to this point, and that disappoints me. Other people that have posted signs in relationship to this have not had their signs tampered with at all, but yet these vote no, the green and white signs that were around, within a 24-hour period of time of them being posted, 3 mutilated, 5 gone. That doesn't speak very well for the town that I was born and raised in, and it disappoints me immensely in the people that are out there. So I hope you find a better avenue to channel your efforts if that's the way that you want to be. Once again, thanks for having me here.
Except I apologize for the people that may have done that.
Thank you.
You couldn't pay me enough to do that to one of your signs. So.
Thanks.
Well, a couple things. I'm glad we had some employees here again representing their side. We definitely heard them. Dan and I are going to make every effort we can to make sure that we work with Kevin and the employees to make sure that the plan that they get going forward is what they want. Take the press to task a little bit here. I think in the article that was written in the paper after the last meeting, I think you incorrectly identified who the culprit was. It wasn't the terrible PID board that caused the employees to lose faith. It was the investment company that that was handling their money, and we were 100% supportive behind them. And we were the ones that said, by all means, let's do an audit to make sure that they get their due diligence, or that they do their due diligence, and that our employees get justice. They brought a problem to our attention. We addressed it, and I think we took the appropriate action. And I was a little surprised to read that the article sort of brought us to task and questioned whether or not they would need an audit if we'd have had more credibility, which I think was a little misled there. Just my own personal view there. On the rest of this evening, I think I feel like we're moving forward and we're making some good headway, and we're starting to identify the issues that we have to deal with, and I like the direction that we're heading in, and I think we all work together, we'll probably come out with really good solutions and a really good organization here. That's all I have to say.
Well, we've got about 8 minutes, I think, or something to 10 o'clock. We're going to go in closed session here in a few minutes. I thank the public for coming and contributing as much as you have. Even Ward there, who I tease quite a bit, that it's very important to this district that we have public input, and you guys get up and talk to us and tell us your concerns, and I look forward to seeing you again. I've talked to people about your signs. I don't know who's doing it, but I know the people I talk to have no more idea than I do of who's possibly destroying your signs, Seth and Larry. I don't think it's a very good thing for anybody to have to experience. And as far as the comments about Larry and Seth, regardless of how the election comes out, most of the time I've enjoyed your company, sometimes not, but that's just part of being here and so forth. And I think we will give, if you don't make it, certainly we'll get recognition for the time you've served on the board. So with that.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. And now.
Do I get that $1 million that I'm supposed to get?
The golden, it's the golden handshake.
They say we were making $100,000 a year, and they owe me $1,400,000.
At least you got a laugh out of me. I've been pretty serious most of the night.
I want to make one comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate, and I'm sure the people appreciate the fact that you saved the closed session for the last, so that they wouldn't have to sit here and wait for us to come out of closed session to hear the rest of.
Well, I'd like to take credit, but actually George put that part of the agenda.
Thank you, George. Well done.
We don't expect an announcement, so.
Okay, we'll all.
I think that's
thank
being
you all again
appreciative
for
of their time.
coming, and when we come out, you'll probably hear one of those sentences that don't make much sense.